Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of By the Numbers. I'm your host Richard Lewis. Joining me as he always does is the esports historian Duncan Thorin Shields. We've got Sam Bainlaw Davis, the master producer, pressing the buttons, counting the numbers, doing bong hits in the background, occasionally muting his mic. He's
does it all, some would say.
Does it all, exactly. A talented guy. And we've timed our episode with just Americans just full having a meltdown.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? Perfect. I almost was thinking, like, lads, can we just delay it an hour or two and wait for the fucking coup to be over? But no. Instead, we're gonna talk about CSGo and definitely nothing else on this.
Luckily, there is some good drama, like as usual. In case anyone was wondering, pandemic going on, no events anymore. It's a while to probably nothing to talk about. Listen, if you are ever in need of entertainment in this CSGO scene, just load up any of the MIBR players' Twitters. Just have a quick refresh. They might give you a little try because, as usual, they've provided all the drama we need for this episode. Apparently.
Indeed, and in many ways, I want to extend my thanks to the country of Brazil, all of its CS players, all of its citizens, actually, for just basically keeping this show. It's really been the oil in the machine of By the Numbers for like 5 fucking years. Sure. It's amazing. Just never a dull moment. You missed my other podcast as well. Bolsonaro was saying that the COVID-19 vaccine might turn you into a crocodile just the other day. So, It's all kicking off over there, mate. But anyway, before we get into it, shout out to the sponsors. .com, incredible sponsor. They've been with me now for 3 years. So if you want to go and place bets on an esports event in a safe, ethical environment, go do it. .com/RLS. Shout out to NordVPN as well. If you want to tweet on a throwaway account about how a coup is definitely happening, maybe do it from behind a VPN. So, there are no consequences for your stupidity. Go to NordVPN.com/RLS to get a hefty discount. I think it's 68% off if you sign up and with my referral code. So check it out. Great partner. Very pleased to have them. So, right, yeah. I mean, you're itching to start with the Brazilian drama, right? But I don't want to lead
on that if you want.
Yeah, I don't want to lead. Well, yeah, I don't want to lead with that because let's get into the whole fucking Cloud9 thing.
Right. Yes. True.
Yeah, you see, I wanna try and keep it relatively.
A story in theory for the history as well. Come on.
Well, yeah. So we did talk a little bit about Kassad and whatnot. On the last episode, which is just a few days ago. But since then, another story broke that they look to be in talks with another player, which is like, what the fuck? I mean, the Colossus is only 4 months old, right? It's only just been built. So, why are we talking about roster changes? Now, it was kind of intimated that maybe the player they were looking at was a 6th man. I don't buy it because it just so happens that it's Xeppaa, formerly of Chaos, one of the breakout players in 2020 with his compatriot Leaf, who's moved over to Valorant, potentially also at Cloud9 if rumors are to be believed. And he's too good to be a 6th player in my mind.
Yeah, that's the problem.
So I immediately will put it to you. I think we are looking at roster changes in the Colossus right from the get-go.
The one part that I actually think is tenable from this whole 6-man roster scenario, because by the way, just to put it out there for the millionth time, I agree that Vitality is doing a 6-man rotation. They're just the only ones, as far as I can tell, that can do it the way that they're doing it. I don't think that will become de rigueur for the entire CSGO scene and everyone will just have a 6th or a 7th man. I think it's very unlikely. The reason I say that is to set up the following point, which is my suspicion with this move is it's like the Bobski move. It's the most eligible player you can find in the scene who needs to join your team, basically. Like if they don't, they're not in a great situation. So it's worth it for them, even if temporarily it means they don't play, to sit on a bench. But the reason that they're sitting on a bench is, as you say, when they're as good as these players are, basically people who either should be in your team or another team, they should just be a starter somewhere. The logic is, I don't believe that player really comes in thinking, oh, so I'm just a six-man who never plays, because no one would really want to do that deal. You at a minimum have got to believe there's a way to fight your way into the lineup, like, you know. Or I would say this, I think it's the cynical new move that orgs are doing to counter the fact that they're so wrecked by the salaries and the lack of control that they have over players, that this is the move. It's like you try and pick up someone who's clearly a real talent, and basically you just let them compete against, instead of just hard kicking a player, I think you let them compete against the obviously up and coming like stud player, and you just replace them. And that way there's no drama. Because if whoever it is you kick out of any of these teams, look at the teams that are doing it. Mouse Sports, Cloud9, like these are teams that have had their issues the last few months. So I think it's a perfectly reasonable way to do it, by the way. Like, I don't like it for the player. Like, I don't like the idea Xeppaa or Bobski will spend any time just sat on a bench. But if in the end it means they find the right player to replace, I get why the org would do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's for me, it's sort of guessing where Xeppaa's gonna slot into the team, because, you know, well, this is the issue, right? So funnily enough, I talked about this with Vince earlier today as well, and you know, he was thinking that maybe, you know, it could be a swap for Mezzy, just based on reputation alone. I'm not vibing with that, because I think Mezzy's actually done his job extremely well since he joined Cloud9. I think it would be not necessarily a aggressive move for the roster, but it would be one of those weird situations where you penalize a player for doing nothing wrong. So what you end up with now is, well, who has really been disappointing in the Cloud9 lineup? And you've got to say Woxic.
Oh,
you have
it's
to.
Obvious name, yeah.
Yeah. Now, it gets a little bit complicated because Xeppaa's obviously not an AWPer, but I think what'll probably happen is someone else on the team will pick up the AWP in place of Woxic, and it's Woxic that'll be deemed surplus to requirements. I mean, it's not out of the world of thinking that you could end up with someone like, I don't know, Alex, right? Like doing like an MSL. You know, he's an in-game leader, so he doesn't need to do anything flashy with the AWP. He just needs to hold the angles and make the calls, and, you know, maybe he'll pick it up. And what, you know, yeah, you lose a flashy AWPer in the form of Woxic, but you are getting a lights-out rifler, you know. And so when you look at the team that they've assembled and the core they've got there, the fragging core they've got, it's still really good. Woxic, for me, when I say he's been disappointing, understand the proviso was always we were going to have lands. It was always that we were going to have lands.
That was the whole
That's where Woxic really shines, because he plays with that ice in his veins, that raw aggression that people don't do at LAN. People aren't ready for it. The stakes are higher, so people play a bit more reserved, a bit more conservative. He's not like that. It's why I call him a LANimal. But we're in an online era for, I hate to break it to you guys, probably the majority of 2021 as well. We're probably not going to see many LAN events. So Woxic feels like a luxury. And when I've watched games, mate, and I don't know how many games you've watched Cloud9, I've literally watched them all play. When Cloud9 loses a series or a map in a series, very often the person that has handed the mistakes to the opposition that give him that window of opportunity, it's him, yeah.
No, the problem I have with him as a player is exactly as you set it up. First of all, the assumption was this. In the short term, it obviously looks like a counterintuitive move because you're signing a player who's in really bad form for another team that's not the best team in the world in mouse sports. But the logic was, as you said, it was like, I'm trying to do what seems like not that great a deal, hence why other people aren't going to pick him up now. But if the lands come back, let's say there was a LAN a month from now, you might be laughing. You might have fixed all your problems and he might be an amazing player again. But yeah, the issue is, I agree. When I watch a lot of their games, I watched almost every Cloud9 game. I think I haven't watched like the 9-to-5 COP they played in, but I watched like the main tournaments, DreamHack, Flashpoint, obviously. When I watched these tournaments, I had the exact same thought. The first thing I thought when I watched these matches, the reason why I said it's ridiculous, people were like out on Cloud9 immediately. I watched those games and I was like, mate, Woxic's the guy who threw these fucking games. Like, Floppy had a bad performance at Flashpoint. I'll give him that. At the DreamHack and the other tournaments, I thought it was mainly Woxic who was the player underperforming. And that's even relative to his role. We're not if we talk about put the entire 5 Cloud9 players and he's one of the worst in the team at the moment. I don't know what his issue is. That's why it makes me wonder if that's connected to the Kassad departure. Like, the style of player wasn't what he wanted, or maybe he doesn't want to be a piece within a team. Maybe he wants to have full reign over what he does. I don't know what the angle is, because I agree with you. I think he's the player where if he just comes anywhere close to what he's supposed to do when he's supposed to be the best player, they would have won a lot of these matches. Like they would, I'm not saying they win the tournament, but they would have like at Flashpoint, they should have been a playoff team. At DreamHack, they could have actually had a pretty tasty run there. They maybe could have gone semis final. Like they were looking in good form. So I actually think he is the most obvious person because he's supposed to be the best player in Cloud9. And at the moment, I agree. I think he's been very fragile.
Yeah, I mean, so, that's just a possibility, but I have no idea. I mean, also, let's entertain the notion that rather than drop Woxic, what you do is you bring in a sixth player who's good, who's mustered and proven, and you basically say to Woxic, like, you gotta raise your game. The real question now for Cloud9, for me at least, sort of comes about now that Kassad's left, and it looks like Elmapuddy's going to be joining. Well, this is a guy, like, I mean, I've seen his content. He seems a cool dude, but this is also like a big, unproven, kind of appointment. And you've got all these players that are inexperienced. And so the one good thing I would have thought would have come out of a Kassad tenure is that you've got an experienced guy, traveled internationally, older dude, lived a life, and he's going to help sort of bed them in and get them over the hump of all the problems. I don't know if the Elmapuddy coaching appointment comes with the same sort of clout and inspiration that Kassad would do, which doesn't mean he's not the right guy for the job by any stretch of the imagination. But it's that's more out of left field than even the Xeppaa move for me.
Yeah, that's also one aspect that I think is quite unusual is of all the people they're bringing in, remember, Elmapuddy's only teams he's been in I think he was technically briefly in Cloud9 when he was there with, I think, was it Genji his first team, or was he technically with Cloud9 at the end of the DAPS period when they went over to Genji? I'm not sure, actually. I feel like it's a similar time for him. But anyway, if we think of the team we're talking about, that core of like DAPS, Automatic, later BnTeT, etc., I can tell you from listening to the comms, like these aren't people who are arguing. These aren't people who are massive personalities, can't all fit in a room. These are actually incredibly subdued characters. Like, these are people who, if they talk, it's about the game. And you never almost heard any like complaining about what was going on or, people arguing. So as a result, I don't really know that anything in his career thus far suggests that he's someone who's going to like level people up in that sense. If anything, when I saw him announced, it actually made me wonder how much of the move was in the Alex versus Kassad part of the equation in Cloud9, because this move to me looks more like Alex is like, I want to have most of the control and just bring in a guy to be the coach and watch the demos. Like that's what it sounds like when you do this move. Because I agree with you. If you're going to kick out Kassad because it's like the vision doesn't align or whatever, well then we should be shooting for another one of the biggest names in the world, right? We should be going for whoever, insert whatever name you want. There's a lot of coaches available, to be fair, but they aren't. Like they picked up someone where this is a bit out of left field to me. Like I agree, this guy can be a coach. He seems like he has a good mind for the game, but in my opinion, the Cloud9 roster is an incredibly high pressure job to take. Like you basically have to succeed. And then not only do you have to succeed, as you pointed out, some of the pieces aren't there yet. Like they haven't got a ready to go, instantly ready to win the tournament team. They already had a team that was a fixer-upper, which, as you pointed out, was kind of what I thought the point of bringing Kassad in was, to get Mezzi bedded in, to get Esatag playing in a new squad, to bring Woxic back on board. Like these were all, I thought, what, like Kassad jobs. That sounds like something that was in his tenure.
Yeah, it's a weird one though, because I was thinking about this, and sort of assessing the Colossus, and I've seen them get a lot of flack on social media, right? I mean, that goes without saying. Henry, I'm sure knew that was going to be something. Like when if you didn't win every tournament you entered immediately, which was never likely, and you're calling yourself a Colossus, obviously you're going to get a bit of stick, right? That's the nature of the beast. I'm sure he knew that.
Yeah, but here's the thing about that. This is one aspect I want to ask you about, because I feel like there's a weird area, right, where, because people already on social media love to critique talent, like Henry obviously was a commentator, right? I feel like some of that has almost blurred into his gig here, where it's like, dude, this reminds me of when I joined Flashpoint. It's like from day one, people who you haven't done anything to are just pulling against you, even though you're like, but why would it be good for Cloud9 and Flashpoint to fail? Like, what is this? Like, because I feel like I get that vibe, because as you, right, here's the thing. Think about some of the things Henry's done. Signed massive players to Cloud9, something they hadn't done for years. Announced all the salaries, so they're spending real money. These are all things, right, that if you spin it the right way, are massive positives if you're a fan of the team. But
Sure.
everyone's like using these as the sticks to beat him with constantly.
Yeah, the problem you've got, unfortunately, is that at the end of the day, there's a strange phenomenon in esports in general, and that is that when you're a fan of something, I kind of feel that it doesn't inspire like the same kind of like diehard, lifelong loyalty that, say, being a fan of a band might, or being the or politics is a good one. We're seeing a strong uptake for the fucking live by the sword, die by the sword, political people in the US right now, party affiliation wise, religion, a fandom essentially. Of a deity, but when it comes to esports,
that's going to be so dark in about 10 years when they're like, so what were religions teaching? Yeah. It's sort of like with K-pop groups now, the way that we're all very.
That's where we're at, brother.
That's going to be the lens it's going to be all interpreted through,
that's where we're at. But wait, what you've got in esports is like no one really knows what it means to be a fan of of something. Sure. Like, okay, I'm a Cloud9 fan, right? I wake up in the morning, I'm a Cloud9 fan. I got my shirt, I got my little swirly 9 in the shape of a cloud. I love the current team, but then the team leaves. So who am I loyal to? Do I follow the players over to their roster? Well, I mean, if you're a Brazilian fan, that an MIBR fan, there was a lot of division going on there. I mean,
for sure.
When Fallen left, some people wanted to go where he goes next. So now you've seen the memes. Liquid is Brazil now, right? To a lot of people, it will be. They'll get a huge pop in Brazilian numbers because Fallen is such an iconic figure. Equally, some people said, I can't support MIBR anymore. They moved across to Furia because they were still imbued with that national element to it. And then other people said, well, I'm loyal to the brand that's been resurrected, the brand that has this history intent. So when you're an esports fan, it's like, where do your loyalties lie? And as a result, I think there's a generational lag with Cloud9 fans. There were people who were around that kind of like hopped on the Glory supporting bandwagon literally just before that major, biggest team in NA and everything, and they win that major, and then it consolidates everything, and then they've kind of like begrudgingly stuck around while that team got dismantled slowly but surely. But it was like fucking Theseus's ship, so there was always one player that you sort of knew and liked to root for, and by the time they left, you got to know the other guy. But as a result of that, they're almost like living in this mindset of, well, we love the team, but we also simultaneously hate it for serving up 2 years of underperformance since we won that major. So they haven't gone anywhere per se, but I'll wager a lot of them, they turn their Astralis flare on, they turn their Team Liquid flare on. You see a lot of plastic fans, a lot of Glory supporters in esports, way more than I think in normal football and stuff, and normal sports in general. So I think that's what's going on there. It's like they secretly hoping all of Henry's moves are going to be great, and when they are, they're going to go, I was a Cloud9 fan all along, me, governor. But if they're not, they want to reserve the right to mock and have it be a continuation of the critique of the direction Cloud9's gone in. I think that's pretty much the psychology of what's going on, like.
Because that is the one part I can't really get along board with. I get people who maybe just don't like Henry or think he's going to do a bad job or whatever. I get all that part. And I certainly definitely agree with what you just said. Like the inertia of the last 2 years of Cloud9 is also part of what's fucking the current lineup, even though it had nothing to do with the majority of the players they have now. But the part I can't get is, like, as we were talking about the Cloud9 fans, like, if I'm actually a Cloud9 fan, now is not the time I'm losing hope and getting mad. Like, I'm loving the fact that they're making bold moves. Even now, they're going out there, and when people aren't willing to spend money, they're actually signing obvious talent, and they're even trying to integrate it in the lineup. Like, there's a lot of big money teams that have been made in Counter-Strike that would have got way more months than this before they had to make a roster move. Shall I just throw some names out there? MIBR, Nip, you've all fucking seen them. Fnatic, like, they've all played like that for the last half a decade. We all know they just have entire years that are a write-off because they just refuse to give up on an old lineup that everyone else knows doesn't work, but they don't know that yet. And they make every excuse in the book, and then eventually someone gets forced out because when everyone's money gets endangered, magically they all get a conscience and decide they have to cut someone, don't they? Weird how that works.
Yeah.
But before that, we get this whole shit show that's going on with MIBR, where it's like all the players are on the same side and they're all just against the org. So, like, I agree. I totally get it that, like, 2019 was a waste of time for a Cloud9 fan. 2020 was largely underwhelming because it was just that, like, NA team that you just hoped would make it, but they were never going to. It was like a fucking kids movie. But the point is, now is not the time to be bailing out for your Cloud9 fan. Now's the time to buy in. Like, now's when actually, I think in like a couple of months from now is when they're going to be really good. I even like this move. I think it's quite an interesting move. It's quite bold.
Yeah. Well, so this is what I mean. I think what Henry's probably going to end up doing is maybe it's not going to be a Colossus, but that he's going to end up assembling an incredibly solid team of talent that work together well with each other, that are greater than the individual sum of the parts, you know. And I agree with you. I think there was, like, I watched every Cloud9 game, like I said, so I think I'm dialed in with what the problems were. And I've got to be honest, even with Kassad there, even with Woxic there, they were not getting better on a series-to-series basis. Like, it was, with the exception of Flashpoint, where they had some really uncharacteristic throws against Virtus.pro on Overpass in particular. This was a team that still had a lot of problems. You know, they lose heavily to pistols. They get ecoed a lot. Woxic was delivering ops to the enemy on a worryingly frequent basis because he's trying to play an aggressive picking style in a team that clearly wants to play for information and site control. So, you know, I think, honestly, yeah, it might on paper look like a crazy move. It's actually just been confirmed while we're on air, by the way, that Woxic is the one being benched.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, it's just on HLTV now. You know, so I think I think all things told, it probably is a step in the right direction. And you know, I'm not going to say they're a Colossus. I'm not going to tip them to win tournaments. But when I was looking at what they've actually achieved so far, you know what? It took OG a fucking year. It took OG a year to sort of be where they are now, solidly in the top 10, being competitive at tournaments. You look at the run Cloud9 had. I know Flashpoint was a bust, but, you know, semi-finals and 2 tournaments, and I think like 5th to 8th at DreamHack. You know, not many teams hit the ground running as well as they have, jumped up 200 places in the world rankings. So, yeah, I think they can. They'll be there or thereabouts in the top 10 by the end of Q1 this year, I think.
And also, when I say that, like, the Flashpoint result, like, remember, the only teams they played at Flashpoint were Virtus.pro and OG, the teams that finished first and second in the tournament. So, like, it's not like one of those scenarios where, like, because I know pros love to do that, where what'll happen is, right, say you're at an IEM like 3 years ago, and you get knocked out in the upper bracket by, I'll just throw out a random name back then. We'll just say like Nip or someone who's not that great, but they're just an okay pro team. What you do is, when you then later get eliminated from the tournament by like someone really good, like Team Liquid in the lower bracket, you go, well, we only lost to Team Liquid. It's like, well, no, you got eliminated by Team Liquid, but the reason you even had to play Team Liquid so early is because you got beaten by a much worse team. So actually, that you're almost like trying to make your tournament sound not as bad as it was, because you're just making the last point of the tournament where you got eliminated, like you're making it a good team. They didn't even have that. They only played Virtus.pro, the winner of Flashpoint, and OG, the team that came second. Like, they were in the most stacked group. So when they consider that's like far and away their worst result, and even then, both times they had 2 really competitive maps. 2 were like OT specials, like big games. Like, I actually think there's a lot of positives in the team. I agree with you, though. Almost every player has still like a knock against them or something that hasn't quite come to play. That's the reason why it's not the Colossus at the moment. The Colossus was based on if every player sort of did what realistically was plausible. Not like max potential, but like obviously Woxic could be an amazing player. Thanks a pretty solid like Phil. Alex is one of the best side gels. All the pieces basically could have, if everything had gone perfectly, hit the ground running and been a monster. I agree with you. More realistically, this just becomes a top 10 team within like 2 or 3 months. I think that's more like the trajectory for the squad. But I do like some of the players in the team. This is why I say, though, I asked about the criticism thing earlier, because I feel like if you're Henry G right now, you are damned if you do and you are damned if you don't. It's like Moses over at Team Liquid.
Yeah.
You notice all those people who were trying to like blame Moses for cutting Twistzz. It's like, Twistzz, you're the guys who worship numbers. His numbers are shit. By your temple of fucking stats tells you he is not a top player. So what is it? If you're Moses, you have two scenarios. You either stay with him, in which case you're the fraud moron who didn't know that he was bad and didn't cut him, or you kick him and then you're the moron who kicked him. And if he ever has a good game again, you're a moron. You can't win. So in this scenario, right, I know one thing people are bagging on Cloud9 for is when people found out how much Essetag his deal was worth, right? Because logically he isn't worth that. It's just that it is, listen, it's absolutely a fucking seller's market in that regard because like they just had to have a big name. So unfortunately, he did overspend for that name who can never sort of live up to that. Like you have to be basically ZWO'd to be worth the money that he was paid. Yeah. So the problem is he's never going to live up to that. But even then, he's a quality player. Like I don't get this whole like abandoned ship thing. For me, it's way too hasty. You're just idiots going the other way, just going abandoned after 4 games. Like you can't be doing that, man.
I saw some great comments in the HLTV thread announcing the Xeppaa move. It was brilliant. Like there was one. Let me get this. Henry G is just burning Jack's money on this dead roster from an account called Emperor Trump. I mean, yeah, it's 4 months old. It's had semi-final finishes at tournaments. How the fuck, in any way, shape, or form, is it dead? Also, by the way, here's something to consider. I'll wager, like a lot of players, if Woxic is benched now, I'll wager that there is a clause in his contract that if he's on the bench, he doesn't make full salary.
Of course.
And
almost everyone has that. Yeah.
Right? And I'll also wager that Xeppaa is coming in on a reduced salary and he has no buyout because he's a free agent.
Yes.
So actually,
actually,
long term, this probably makes, they probably make the money back on Xeppaa, what they're saving on Woxic and then some. So it's not even burning money. It's almost like a money ball type thing. You know? So I hope it works. I mean, the other point to this as well is, because we haven't really talked about him, is I want to commend Xeppaa because I know it was immensely hard for him to make this choice because his mates are fucking off to play Valorant. Vanity's off to Valorant. Leaf's in Cloud9. Apparently, it's not a rumor; it is confirmed. Sorry, I never know what I know by accident and because mates tell me and what is actually true. So, in general, I'll say something's a rumor even if it happened a week ago, just in case I'm letting the cat out the bag. But yeah, I mean, like, it was incredibly hard. He could have gone. He would have got a fat, Valorant contract. Probably he's been able to play with his mates. But instead, he stayed in CS. He's going to use his clear talent for the game. And he's going to do it in an environment that's going to be very demanding. This is a guy that, like, it's all right when you're chaos. You're the fucking underdogs. And we all saw what happened, by the way, when they beat MIBR. You're in for this is the real shit now. You're in Cloud9. That is the highest percentage of fans on Reddit by a long distance. Yes. By a long, long distance. This is the most supported team in North American Counter-Strike by a long distance. You are under scrutiny and pressure like you have never been before when you were playing at Chaos. And trust me, he's got about, 10 series to fucking find his feet, or people will be calling for his head as well. So I'll say to him, fucking balls on this kid to go from relative obscurity to being a breakout player to being in Cloud9. I say credit to him. He could have took the soft option because he'll dominate Valorant with all them washed up bitches over there. But he's staying in the real game. He's staying in the real FPS, and he's put himself under immense pressure for a shot at glory. So that deserves commendation, I think.
Oh, for sure. He's also a good player. Like, one of the cool things about that guy is he's another person that gets forgotten in the whole who were the revelations of 2020. Like, he's right up there. He's up there with, like, the Mantus of the world. Like, there's another player. I'd never even heard of this guy before Steel picked him up for this team. Like, he was a name that I maybe saw on a page when some online qualifier or something, So the idea that he came in and he's been one of the best NA players since joining Chaos, like, I think he's a player where the potential for growth over the next few years is enormous. That's why, to me, the Chaos lineup, particularly, as you said, Leaf and then Xeppaa, the fact that those players weren't just being clamored around by all the other CS teams, that was when I actually did start to get concerned for where, like, the NA owners' heads are at in CSGo, because these are players where, like, you're buying low right now if you get that player. So if you're not willing to buy him at all, you're just not willing to buy players. So, like, I think it's actually a massive positive also that he stays in the scene, because this is a player that looks like in 2 or 3 years, he could be in the category of the Elysias, the Twistzz of the world, who were considered like the superstar talents.
Yeah. I think as well, like, I'm just wanting to see kind of where they're going to match up in terms of, you know, this clamor to be the top of NA again. I mean, that would be the first step, right? That I think Cloud9, because I know obviously they're technically like European and they're playing. People will always have the association of Cloud9 as being an NA brand. That's never going away. Even if you had an all-European lineup, right? The bulk of your fan base is going to be North American. And, you know, Team Liquid are in the dumps right now. Looks like there's all sorts of shit going on with Furia. There's a real chance to take back the crown. And I think that's the first step. I mean, I know Henry's sort of setting himself, because obviously I talked to him. You know, Henry said he wants to win trophies in 2021. I think that's the ambition. But I mean, you know, baby steps, like, you know, Team Liquid. It's crazy when you think about the two teams, the two rosters they've got, and kind of they are really similarly positioned in the ranks, in my opinion. Like currently Cloud9 is ranked like 22nd in the world. That's artificial. I mean, above them is like fucking MIBR, Spirit, like I don't even know who, I'm not looking at it. But you know, there's a bunch of teams there you would immediately put this roster above. And so realistically now, when Team Liquid are in the doldrums at like 17th, there's a real chance to go get it, like actually make a statement that I think is almost as profound as winning a trophy, and that's just getting yourself back up there and being like, listen, Cloud9's back, we're above Liquid, we're above Fury, we're above all these brands, we're above all these orgs. So yeah, I hope they can do it. I mean, it'll be really sad to see a bunch of good young upcoming players fail. And listen, when you consider the most experienced kind of on the roster is like Alex, you know, or maybe Esatag. That it's mental what they're really going for here. It's a very bold and ambitious project.
It's super bold, yeah. There's also the other thing to say as well, to kind of bring it full circle, is it's one thing if you listen, if you don't like Henry, you don't like Cloud9, like if you're a Team Liquid fan, yeah, of course cheer against him. But put it this way, in terms of being a Counter-Strike fan, it would be terrible for Counter-Strike as a game if this Cloud9 roster completely failed and then NA Augers all got the owner, all got the message like, oh, it's not a good idea to spend millions and bring, like, the whole premise of like a lot of what's trying to be done with this team is really important for the future of the game. Like we want like real experienced people to be put in charge of these projects and given the chance to have real say over who the players are, because I know it's a transition period now because players used to do it all before, but that's why it sucked. That's why stupid lineups like the MIBR lineup of most of this year still existed, with stupid ass players getting to decide who plays and playing God with other people's money. So that's the point. I want the orgs themselves, like they're doing now, to take control of that aspect. Still spend the money, of course, we need you to, but hopefully this and other projects like it will show that in the future, like we won't have to have two players, oh, we must play together or we're going to ruin two orgs. Like, no, there'll be a manager guy who actually decides who plays for the team and whether you make sense to, and if you don't, you won't join no matter how good of friends you are with that guy.
Yeah, it's true, mate. The other, right, well, let's do the MIBR one then. Let's give it a big chunk of time because there is a lot to break down
for
here.
Sure, yeah.
Right, let me set the scene. Squad. I'm in fucking tier 4 lockdown, so my sense of time is a flat fucking circle, mate, for me. So they all tweeted the letter F for some reason. I don't know why.
Even sooner than that. I think it was not that long ago that they did it all. It was a couple of weeks
ago. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it feels like 3 weeks. It could be fucking 3 days.
That sounds about right, though.
But anyway, they all tweeted the letter F, which obviously is from the fucking meme from press F to pay respect in a Call of Duty game. This weird, you know, a fetishization of veteran death that only American media can produce, while simultaneously also being horrifically disrespectful. It remains one of the most, it remains one of the most stupefyingly ridiculous things I've ever seen. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. We'll save that for another podcast, a totally different one. Or that meeting at the docks.
There you go.
See you there. But anyway, yes, they all pressed F, and that obviously meant that the team had imploded, the team had died, something was going on, but it wasn't immediately clear. Then we saw reports coming out that, hey, Kogu's leaving. And then it was, oh, Lucas is leaving. That was both confirmed. Then it was VSM wasn't re-signing his contract. Apparently, that was predicated on them not being able to arrive at an agreement, that means money to me. I mean, I'm just a fucking layperson, though, so what do I know? And then it's now been confirmed today, not the entire MIBR team, this one that they signed, all on short-term contracts, give a lifeline to some of these players, is essentially out, bar KNG. I think KNG and TRK. So,
and I'm going to guess they already had existing contracts from before because they were in the past.
Yes, because
so
they were the legacy players.
Yes.
At the same time, this has all been brewing. Henny, our friend, who was sort of like the missing piece in the Furia jigsaw when he went there, really did help them kick up a bunch and actually did find the one thing that had eluded him for a while, which was consistency. His numbers were phenomenal in Furia. Once again, he seems to want to play with his twin brother, Lucas. And that now is the rumor that's circulating that Kogu, the coach, who was the leader of this ship and had done so well, they went out and basically have got some sort of deal, some sort of money deal with some org. We don't know who it is. And they're building that team together. So let's just start here. It seems crazy to me. I don't know what's happened here, and I don't know who's failed. But this MIBR team, we said it. I think it was literally last episode, 2021. I want to watch this team and see where it ends up because I think they're exciting. I think they've got that real blend, you know, of just being good to watch, having the right levels of aggression, the right levels of passion, right levels of competitive nature, and they've got a good coach behind them. This is a team I can root for. This is a team I can enjoy. Well, they've Atom smashed it apart. And when you start hearing rumors about, you know, oh, well, we couldn't get a deal done. The money wasn't right. You know, VSM's a VAC band player, kids. Like, how many options is this kid really going to have in his career? Well, apparently more than one, which is all it takes for a negotiation. So I don't know who's fucking dropped the ball here, but it seems to me a colossal loss for MIBR, right, you know, as the starting point.
Oh, it's terrible because obviously, like, this was actually a massive PR turn, was that lineup, because that lineup came in, and even though, funnily enough, initially it looked like it was very cynically made, it ended up being way better than it had any right being. Like, that team was way better than it should be, especially as you say, we're not even just talking about results, just quality of, like, watching them play. That they're actually an entertaining squad to watch play Counter-Strike. It was fun. Like, I loved how KNG's playing that team. It was fucking amazing. The VSM guy was a revelation. Like, I thought this guy's going to be garbage if he hasn't played for all these years. He's been VAC banned and stuff. The problem is, it's what you nailed at the end there. I'd say this. I notice, as usual, because the most feckless fans on the fucking internet are from Brazil, that already, they don't even need any information, Richard. They already know it must be the MIBR org. It's all evil. It's all piece of shit. Everything the players say must be right. And as usual, well, what are the odds of this? And a Brazilian CSGo player is the victim in a scenario, Richard, and has been entirely unfairly treated, and everything he says is true. I'm bored of this. I'm just bored of it, because it's the same group of people who've lied again and again and again. Again and again, over and over. It never stops. The lying, the victimhood, the perpetual narcissist prayer said over and over again, just with different Mad Libs names written in the spots of the narcissist prayer. It's ridiculous, because here's the problem, right? I would just put it to you like this. Explain to me one possible way in which it could be MIBR fucking these players over. Why would it benefit MIBR player that to sign these players who apparently are super duper awesome, but not for the best salaries, right? Why would that help them? Yeah. It doesn't. There's not, like, that's the weird thing. All I see is people just at face value taking it that MIBR is fucking their own. Listen, MIBR's treatment of the previous lineup, I have my issues with. Like, for example, I think they should have fired people months ago. I think some of the people should have been directly punished for some of the things they did. Yeah, there's a million things they did wrong this year. But with the new lineup, I haven't seen it. Like, I don't get that. As you said, first of all, let's go with VSM. A literal VAC band player who, based on all the things we've seen recently, there is still zero sign will ever be un-VAC banned, right? Well, if you're VAC banned, you can't play majors. Now, I get it that MIBR, the org, Cozzer and Flashpoint might be fine with that in the short term. Maybe they think, listen, the lineup's still good. He's one of the best players. You play with him in the short term, you try and find a sixth man and you can play majors that way. But even so, you're giving up a fucking lot to play with that guy. Then add in some of the others. Who is Leo Drunky? There's a guy I'd never heard of before this team. This is a nobody, a literal nobody. There's not a player with some like tenure. He's not a player that people are eager. Now, he's a good player. He certainly showed his skills. I thought he was a pretty solid entry. He seemed to understand how to play with those other players. Basically, everyone in that lineup except KNG, you're absolutely out your minds right now. Like, you don't even know 2 years down the line what you're going to look back if you had any self-reflection and go, I fucked that up completely. Because, by the way, you might have an org right now, like the story you're referring to, that gives you an offer, right? That org isn't MIBR, Dom Fox. I guarantee that org is a fucking nobody org or some small Brazilian org or some org we've never heard of. So even if it's the same dollar amount, that dollar amount isn't guaranteed the same way as it is. Like, if you tell me MIBR, the org, are they going to be out of business in 3 years? Probably not. Doesn't seem likely. Seems like probably fine. I can't say that about whatever random org's giving you this money. So I would just say this. My issue is this. MIBR right now, in signing that team, are taking on a lot of considerations that you don't take on if you're just trying to sign the best team in the world. So to ask for like a lower salary, and the whole side thing I've heard is that like basically it was along the lines of like they were just going to pay the players the set amount and then the players figured out their own accommodation. Like that whole thing's a red herring thrown out there immediately to show it's not like a real discussion about player rights or anything. So as far as I can tell, MIBR was willing to sign the team, most of them at least. Obvious reasons. It was a good team. It's got good PR. But for a budget, like obviously you're not going to get paid what the older MIBR players. By the way, I don't know why I have to say this in 2021, but this is how bad the world is now because Fallen's about to walk into one of these contracts. Hello, Fallen and Fur. You don't deserve 20k a month, you daft cunts. What world are you living in? This isn't 2016 anymore. Have you invented a flux capacitor? No, then get the fuck out my face because you ain't worth 20k a month. Like, that's what's crazy to me. I heard about the last MIBR lineup in the same org was trying to get like the biggest salaries in the world. Like, these guys have completely lost the plot. They also don't seem to get, by the way, it'd be one thing if this was all going on in 2018. It's 2021 in the middle of the global pandemic where everyone else is like, please, can I have money from the government or I die? And you're just like, 15k a month for my VAC band friend. I'm like, you're so out of touch. You're so out of touch. It's actually nuts. It's so nuts. I can't handle it. It's so nuts, isn't it?
I mean, listen, like, it depends. Like, so just on a couple of points there, right? Like, I'll just add that I know you're saying, you don't think MIBR will be out of business in 3 years. For me, I don't know. That Immortals Gaming group, like they feel
the company, not the brand, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, but that's what, like the parent company behind them is them. They don't have a fucking clue. I mean, like these are the guys that fucked up Optic, for fuck's sake. You know what I mean? So and there's talk about them selling up over at Overwatch. They've had to be offered a cashback deal to stick around. They've got LA Valiant. They were one of the worst first motherfuckers that were in on the bottom floor over there. So I don't know about that, Chief. I think they're hemorrhaging cash. I think they're bleeding out like a stuck pig, honestly. And I know people in the scene that they promised jobs and said, don't worry about it, we're going to be good. And they've made cutbacks and shit. So fuck them guys. I don't think they know what they're doing. And let's also be real. They're also the same management group that managed the old fucking MIBR. You know, they didn't just get better at their fucking jobs because, like, you know, they picked up some young players. They literally rolled the dice to meet contractual commitments and they unearthed gems. Like, basically, it was on every dice, it was 6 across the board. They rolled crits. They fucking absolutely got lucky every time. And they haven't been able to retain those players. Now, I also agree with you, mate, that fucking probably that some of the money that was being asked for here was mental. But the real question now for me sort of becomes, what are they going to do? You can't rebuild again if you're MIBR. You simply can't. You got super lucky this time. If you wanted to stay relevant in CS, you had to break the bank to keep these players. It might not be fair. It might not be right. It might not be what they're worth, but it's what you had to do. You had a team that was working. The fans had come back. All was forgiven. You had Kogu, the original MIBR guy. You needed to make this work round the table. Now that they've gone, what are you going to do? You know what? Fucking FNX Phelps Fur, like, you know, we get a tackle.
What wrong? Yeah.
What mad shit?
Bust, right?
Yeah, bolts, steel. You know, like who are you gonna get? Who are you gonna get? What mad Frankenstein team are you gonna put together this time? And maybe you can put together a Frankenstein team, but it's not gonna work like the last one was. It's not gonna be as exciting. You're not gonna get lucky twice. Doesn't work like that. Not in this game. So I think MIBR might be now with just KNG and TRK around. They might think about folding up. They might. But now that the next
CS for sure.
Yeah. So now the question becomes, well, what does KNG do? Because he's the AWPer. He's restyled himself as an IGL. There's no room for him at that fucking particular inn, is there? Because Henny's there. So KNG literally is now, like, I don't know how he's gone from being the breakout promising guy that everyone was willing to fucking throw away their careers for, to being this supposed savior of MIBR when he came in, like, oh God, the prodigal son, he's here, he's going to save us all, KNG's going to learn from Fallen, and now he's like, yeah, no one even wants to play with this guy. Just at the point in his career where he seems to have fucking sorted his fucking head out. Actually seems to be capable of not tweeting something completely fucking stupid on a daily basis, not saying something completely inappropriate, being a leader of men, you know? This is the best version of KNG, and I think he's not going to have a team. That's mad. So I legitimately don't know what's going to happen to him. I mean, do you have any insight, any ideas where you think he could end up, or do you think he just goes back to playing in like the Brazilian leagues and, you know, with some shit roster?
See, the weird thing about him as well is he's another one of those players where I know this might sound weird, but I notice a lot of the Brazilian players are like this. They also seem to want to join teams based on if they're like friends with people more than just if the team's good. So that also makes me wonder if it's back to a Brazilian team for him or some shit Frankenstein version 2 in MIBR. Because the weird thing about him as well is, even though I know a lot of European players respect him, he's not a player that's put in the time and effort speaking English and building up the relationship. So unfortunately, I don't think he's got like the option to go to a FaZe type team, which would obviously be the dream in that scenario. So I'd like a world where maybe he could go and play in a team like FaZe, just being a massive international team. He's certainly good enough. He's a good enough player. I don't know mentally, though, and socially if he can handle it, though. I also want to ask you about this. Yep. One thing that I've learned from today, and I already had an inkling of this before, but it's resolute in my mind now. With the exception of the Furia players, if I was in CSGo, I would never deal with Brazilian players under any context. Because, mate, it's actually mental. It's like I said in a tweet today. It's not a case of, if I sign these Brazilian players, will they one day turn against... No, it's a question of when will they. What will happen is, doesn't matter what you do for them, you can pay them a king's ransom. You can win majors with them. You can put them on first-class flights around the world. You can send them to meet leaders of countries. As soon as they hit a moment in a contract negotiation or the way they... By the way, even you choosing who gets to play for your org or where you play, they will instantly publicly out you and turn all your own fans against you. At some point in time, listen, I'm not going to be a bleeding heart for a bunch of scumbag, like cynical businessmen in esports who don't really give a fuck about that. But at some point in time, you have to ask yourself, is it even worth picking these players up? Like, they're not the best in the server anymore either. If they were the clear cut, like if Brazil was like Denmark, just churning out top talent, I'd get it. But like, these guys don't get it. They're going to wear out their welcome real fast. Because I'll tell you what, we've seen this in the past as well. Which past org that dealt with Brazilians wants them back? Exactly. And by the way, this is in theory one of the most niche, valuable fan bases in the whole world for how many people will watch the match. So I don't think they get how much they're actually like endangering the future of their careers, because certain players, mainly the ex-MIBR and Immortals players, I would just never want to deal with these people. Because listen, I'll call people out when it's righteous. Like, this person's actually behind the scenes, like, fucked with my whole career. They've lied to me explicitly. They've screwed me out of money. I don't just do it for some petty minor reason and just out a bunch of private shit. These guys do it about their own org, like every 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, look, there's a lot to consider when you start looking. First of all, I've said this for years. You can go back and look in like 2015, 2016. I said that the next big region to sort of be activated was South America, with Brazil obviously being the jewel in that particular crown. And whoever could go and activate that region makes a fuck ton of money. Because I know from following mainstream sports, you won't find a more dedicated fan base than Brazilians. Like, if you're their guy, they'll fucking go to the ends of the earth to support you. Sometimes, obviously, as we found out, to ridiculous extremes. But activating that is very exciting in a business where numbers matter, and so it was always likely to happen that people were going to start going to that well. Now, coincidentally, just as that happened, they also brought forth an incredible crop of talent that led to them having the best team in the world, and that sort of turbocharged and reinvigorated interest in Counter-Strike and interest in esports in the region, and made household names, not an exaggeration, out of the likes of Fallen and Taco, and people have this huge followings, phone calls with Bolsonaro talking about tax
people
breaks.
Still don't shut the fuck up talking about FNX. He hasn't even played professionally since 2017, guys. Like, this is how crazy huge these guys are.
Yeah, you have to understand that. You have to understand that. So the other problem that's going on underneath that is that there are contract laws in South America that are unique. Like I think, and I haven't done my research on this particular topic before this episode, but it's something I've researched in the past. So I do apologize in advance if I talk out of school and this is incorrect information. But I believe at this moment, if I remember correctly, there's something in South America, in Brazilian contracts, where it's like no contract can sort of not have an out, not have a buyout. There has to be a buyout present. And typically what people do because of that is they offset that buyout to be an exorbitant amount. This is also another reason why long-term contracts, in particular in South America, like we saw with the 5-year deal, this is why long-term contracts, because of that, are very highly sought after from the organizational perspective. You don't want to sign someone on a 1-year contract that has a high buyout, because then no one's going to pay it, because why would you? You'd wait it out. A 5-year contract, if you really want to get your man, 5 years is the lifespan of a game in some cases. So do you want the talent or don't you? Pony up the money. And so there's this undercurrent in the Brazilian culture, and it's the same in soccer. That there is an element where the clubs want to make money off the players, and that culture has filtered down into esports. It's where they are an asset. And so as a result, it is hard to deal with them. It is hard to go out there. It is hard to develop talent. Keep in mind, MIBR essentially had to sort of cheat the system a little bit, if you remember, with that team. They were an unofficial academy team that entered into a deal where if any of their players were deemed good enough by MIBR, they could pick them up. Remember the key context, for a song, it was worded for a reasonable price. So that is a way of trying to beat the system, which is anyone who's talented in Brazil and is highly desired has probably signed a contract where they have this exorbitant buyout that unfortunately other Brazilian orgs and certainly Western orgs are not going to want to pay. Not to mention, on top of everything right now, current political climate in both Brazil and America has made things utterly crazy. The idea of like getting a visa as a Brazilian player moving to America, for example, fucking hell, who even wants to go through that nightmare? Remember the 100 Thieves palaver? Well, now it's times 10.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot going on there. And unfortunately, the upshot of it all is it's really hard to develop Brazilian talent, and it's really hard for Brazilian talent to get opportunities outside of Brazil, which, by the way, many of them could absolutely do. A lot of fluent English speakers, a lot of people who are willing to travel and make money. They understand the value of making hay while the sun shines. That's a big part of Brazilian culture. I've talked about it before. It's one of the things I really admire about the culture in Brazil, is this idea that, you don't just sit on your ass and be lazy. You have to go out and make your bread, because no one's going to give it to you. It's that whole meandro, I think they call it, culture out there. You go out and you hustle hard to get your cash. So and it's there in every aspect of life. So I feel legitimately sorry for a lot of the talented Brazilian players out there, but I agree with you. From an organizational perspective, from a Brazilian perspective, it's too much.
The culture clash is crazy in there.
It's too much. It's too much to go through just to get a talented player in a lot of instances, and that's another reason why I think MIBR are massively fucked up over this, because you're not gonna be able to get another team like this. It's gonna cost them a fortune to even try, and then to try and fail. you don't want to be on that roundabout like so many orgs get on. Spend the VC money on the contract buyouts, throw 5 random players together. Oopsie, it didn't work. All right, here's another 2 players. Here's another 3 players. Oopsie, that didn't work. Right, we're 60 million in the hole. We haven't got a fucking trophy in 2 years. Let's pull the plug. It's a waste of everyone's time. It kills player careers. It kills VC investment, and it kills your organizational brand name. You are always better off when something is working, investing the money into the thing that works.
Yes.
And that's where MIBR have massively fucked up, I think.
It's also why the whole MIBR brand was like an absolute poison chalice from day one, because it made perfect sense when you had effectively, because around the time they were buying them when they were SK, they were like still the #1 team at the time. You're buying the #1 team, but what they never thought of is what you mentioned at the end there, which is everyone and their dog knows you need a Brazilian team. Now the leverage is everyone else in the world against you. Like if Furia ever had to actually negotiate with MIBR for their lineup, they would gouge them like a motherfucker, of course, because you know that they desperately need not only Brazilians, but ideally a really good set of Brazilians, because their whole brand is we are made in Brazil. I think personally, I have to say, in light of what's happened with this last lineup, where you're totally right, they just got lucky. They just rolled the dice on that last lineup. I personally, by the way, think it was just a cynically put together lineup. But I would suggest since it worked, maybe some of the players had some say in it and they just like knew this guy's better than you think, maybe there was some angle like that. But the idea that like you lose your real lineup of stars, listen, they weren't stars anymore, but the profile of the players was a Fur, Fallen, of course. And then you lose this lineup that was like a feel-good roster. In my opinion, you should just shut the brand down at that point in time. Because as you're saying, unless you buy Furia outright, what is the point in being MIBR?
Well, and this is the thing now. I mean, how much when Fallen left, how much value did the brand have? Suddenly it was in the toilet. They made it work by sheer force of will. They brought back Kogu, and suddenly you could be an MIBR fan again. Like now, there's no third time's the charm. There's no third time's the charm here. So you're right. How much value does that brand have? Not every brand, by the way, will stay valuable forever. Even some of the like jewels in the crown, like think about Optic, for example. It's got value because it's back in the right hands again and everyone's excited about that. If the Immortals Gaming Group had continued to run the Optic brand into the ground and make it this hollow shell, I mean, the Green Wall don't stick around. People don't give a fuck. They already lost like hundreds of thousands of followers, lost all their legacy players, all their great players in Call of Duty, already sort of had Hex saying, look, it just ain't Optic no more. I'm off to the Huntsman. I'm off to NRG. All of the fans went there because they know who built that brand. It's like that esports thing. That people in esports aren't loyal to a fucking badge. You know what I mean? It's like it's the one area that's infuriating from a business perspective. But it's also something that makes esports incredibly cool and unique and something to like. That people do want to be a fan of the thing that has soul, the thing that matters to the org, not just a shirt and a badge because you grew up in a fucking postcode. You know what I mean? It's why regional fucking esports is whack as fuck. It's so outdated. It's so backwards. It's so regressive. We were doing that back in my day, back in the boomer days, where it's like, you live here, so you're a Newcastle fan. You live here, so you're a Middlesbrough fan. You live here, so you're a Leeds fan. It's shit. Why can't I support a team on the other side of the world? Well, with esports, you can. And you can also not just support that team. You can support the best players on that team. And because there's so few of them, if they move to another org, it's totally okay to jump across. Hell, support the guy who founded the team. If he goes and makes another org, you go with him. Esports is a lot more it's almost like a lot more intellectual than regional sports in that sense. People look into it. I'm not saying people aren't glory supporters as well, because they are, but it's a mixed bag. So yeah, I don't know, mate. I think unfortunately, I think MIBR sort of has to be done after this. I think it's over for them. And the next question, I guess, sort of for this segment is, what do you think this roster does? I mean, Lucas, Henny, I don't know how many chances these guys are going to have to pull it off. It feels like they've just been, plate spinning since they had that breakout with Immortals making that major final. And then, basically, it feels like Brazilian CS has essentially been set back by the desire of Henny and Lucas to play with each other at all costs. I feel like the history of Brazilian Counter-Strike is completely altered irreparably because of that thing.
There's also the factor that, like, I've mentioned this in the past with these two players, but listen, here's the problem. I can't give my opinion from someone else's perspective. I can only give it from my perspective. So to me, a guy who isn't one of these two people, I think it's stupid that they have to play together like they've repeatedly seemingly intimated in their careers. I mean, the only reason they're not playing together now is because they were in such a bad situation. Lucas's chance over in MIBR the first time around failed, and then Henny just like last chance saloon for Furia. So it wasn't that was our choice. The idea they have to sort of do this fucking merge every time, I think is whack as fuck. Because like I do actually think that like they at different points in their careers they've both been very competent players. But like for example, I thought Lucas was like the worst player in this last MIBR lineup. Like the time when he was the better one of the twins, that's years in the past now. Henny is far and away the better one. But with that said, I totally understand that when I put myself into the brain of one of those two people, if you had a chance to play with your own brother who is your twin and you think he is good, of course you'd go for it. So I get why they're doing it. I just don't think it's a great move. Like, that's not the pairing for me. Like, I actually think Henny's pretty banging right now. I'd play with him. But the problem I have with that lineup is it's still the same core, so there's potential with it. It's just the whole VSM angle. It's like, you can't help but like kill the mood, can it? Because he's clearly one of the best players they had. I don't know if he's going to be in this team because he was just really good at Flashpoint. But the VAC ban, you can't get past it. Like, I want to live in a world where you can have the Yampies of the world and they're so good, it justifies it. By the way, he would be in that category. Like, he was so much better than a bunch of other Brazilian players. It's worth having him. It's just the problem is, if you're trying to look at the team holistically, how much can you really, like, get excited about them long run if you know they can't play a major with arguably their best player? I mean, Kenji's probably the best player, but you know what I mean? Like, they don't have him anymore in this line. There's another factor as well, by the way. If you want to look at that, this is why, I'll bring it all back. This is why the idea you couldn't all get round a table and make this work is a failure for almost everyone involved. Because it's in everyone's best interest that you all play for MIBR and that you can come to an agreement. Because think of this, right? If you now make this other lineup minus KNG, you've also got nothing. You've now got nothing. Because KNG was the best player in that team. And he was the IGL and the AWPer. If you lose that player, what's the point in that team then? That's just like, you know, a team that's going to be like 38th in the world or something, isn't it? It's never going to do anything.
Well, so the only way I could see this being a better move, and this has been talked about, it's out there in esports, cyberspace, rumor land, is that Neymar, the footballer of PSG, he's going to make his own esports org. Loads of people have been talking about him doing this. That he's not just going to invest, he's going to build an org.
Okay.
And he loves Counter-Strike, he plays it.
Seems plausible. I've seen him stream it and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll just throw this in because there's no real other place for it to go, but I just want to say it in case, you know, anything were to happen to me and I left the record unchecked. I think he's a massive cunt. I think he's
as a person, he seems like an absolute wanker, mate. As a player, he's one of the biggest tosses. He's one of those ones where I'm not joking, mate. I told this story a while ago, but I tuned back into soccer at one point in time because I haven't watched it in years, right?
Yeah.
I'm not joking. His was one of the first matches I watched. I watched a full game of Neymar playing, and after the game, I just said to the person I was with, like, they don't really dive like that all the time, do they? And he was like, oh, it's gotten really bad. And I was like, I literally just said, I'm out already. I don't need to watch this. Like, It was bad when I stopped watching it, mate. People like him have ruined that sport.
Oh, yeah, I mean, but not just that, though. Go look into his stuff with his move, his big money move when he went to PSG from, like, fucking... no, when he left, I think it was Santos, and he went to Barcelona.
PSG, yeah.
And then when he left there to go to PSG. Like, basically, he's on the record as saying that if, you know, my father handles a lot of my business, and if he makes some money from, you know, bribes, essentially... then it's all good. I mean,
good.
Yeah, so he's gonna love esports. He's gonna love it. He's gonna love it. Like, basically, he's on the record as having said that, and because he got investigated for his move, and like, I think there's actually still an outstanding trial. The fraud charge got dropped. I think he's up for some other financial impropriety. He's just a massive cunt. He's just a massive cunt, not just in the way he plays football. So, obviously, he plays Counter-Strike and he's a celebrity. So you can imagine what the front page of the fucking CSGo Reddit was like. He's there with like, oh my God, Neymar, insane 3K. And it's like he's playing in fucking silver. And then because of his celebrity status, he gets to play with ZWoo and Apex. Oh, look, he's knifed ZWoo. It's
I also can't handle that. Like, listen, Oh, you all know I didn't have the highest opinion of esports pros as it was. But
Yeah.
the part where you're all whoring yourselves out to get 5 seconds of playing Among Us with AOC, like, would you just grow the fuck up? Like, I couldn't despise some of y'all anymore.
Oh no, it's unbelievable, isn't it? Like any celebrity that even relatively aligns with your interests, or just some that don't, just some who have huge followings. Like what? I'm just supposed to drop to my knees and fillet you like a fucking circus seal because you've entered into my world for 5 minutes. Never me, mate. Never me for a second.
No, exactly.
It's like, remember,
I've made my position pretty clear with that on the whole Shaq thing. It's fuck everyone, including people I actually admire. Just fuck everyone.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I mean for me, like I remember when. I'm trying to think of all the big fucking celebrities that have sort of like tried to get involved. There you go, Mark Cuban's one. He's blocked me. He's blocked me on Twitter now.
Directly.
I'm trying to remember. Probably not. I think you might have seen a clip of me basically saying like Mark Cuban's opinions on esports completely worthless. It's like it would be like me going into the world of investment banking and stocks and shares. Now he can block me. That's fine. But the idea that I've got under his skin by just pointing out you don't actually know this world at all. Because remember, that was around the time that he was being pushed in, like, he was on League of Legends broadcast, and he was going, burnout is a huge problem in esports across the board. Players are washed up at 24 in all esports. It's like, shut your daft cunt. I got Taz and Neo fucking winning trophies at the same time you're saying this in their fucking 30s. You only know League. You only have a cursory understanding of that. You're in no place, by the way, to understand why burnout occurs and why it occurs in some games and not other games. You don't know a thing about it. And there was all some rumors flying around that Mark Cuban wanted to come in and basically make like a Twitch competitor or something. Whatever. Give a fuck. But, you know, it's like, I just don't care about these people. It's like, you can be good at your thing and I can respect you for that. But when you come into my world, I'm the Mark Cuban. You know, when Mark Cuban talks to me, he still thinks he's Mark Cuban. No, I'm the Mark Cuban in esports, you bellend. Bow down and listen to my advice, you daft cunt.
You've nailed it there, by the way. There's the premise that I can't handle, is that if there's a CSGo stream, Richard, and the CSGo stream is this, Neymar plays with Zewoo, people would be like, oh my God, Neymar. It's like, it's in CS.
It's Zewoo. That's
what you should be watching. What are you talking about? You should be like, wait a minute, every day I can watch the Zewoo guy. Yeah, he's available. He's the except obviously he's not in the Neymar CS because he's not a cunt, is he? But seems like a reasonable person.
I mean, nah.
Too much.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you know, so everyone's going to be sucking him up. It'll be a nightmare if he makes it off with all his elite players.
I'll give you a prediction right now. I've seen a lot of personality-owned orgs over the years. That org sounds like a nightmare right now. That sounds like a crash and burn in 3 years. Spent all the money, all the VC money from every cunt in the world that you get to pay, and then you just pay. By the way, great for these players. I'm sure they get paid mega bucks, probably way over market value. That's probably, by the way, why they're doing all this, I'd assume. Maybe they had this in their back pocket. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they weren't actually trying to like negotiate with no leverage. Maybe they knew they had this stupid deal in their back pocket. And so they were like, right, we can go play hardball with MIBR. But I actually think in the long run, the odds that org becomes a true esports org is really good. It's like, you don't want to be involved with orgs that aren't professional. I learned this on the Flashpoint stuff, by the way. There's a lot of things in the business you take for granted when you work with the best companies, that when you go to a company that's at a lower level, you're like, where's all this shit? And they're like, well, we just don't do it like that. It's like, what? The standards, they don't just come overnight. So, like, that's why I said, I don't care what the dollar amount is for this deal for the ex-MIBR players. It's not the same as being in a real esports org. So I would just tread very carefully. Don't go for the highest dollar amount alone. There's a lot of things. I would hope that's what people have learned from the last 2 years. The raw dollar amount is not it. It's what you get along with the dollar amount. Like, how do they treat you? What conditions? What coaches have? Like, here's the question you should be asking yourself if the ex-MIBR players. What happens in 6 months if we fail all the tournaments? Do they cut us all? Do they cut some of us? Do they bring it? You don't even know these things. You're just assuming that, like, because they pay you the salary, they'll be like that. And more importantly, because they have Neymar, which can't be the reason to do something, guys. You're not in soccer.
I can't even imagine a fucking worse idea, by the way, than having like a celebrity that wants to be good at CS, entering into the space, running his own team with players he idolizes in his mind because he cares about the video game, but they also idolize him because he's a fucking soccer superstar.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster, doesn't it?
Oh, mate, these cunts we all know about the Villa mix jokes and all that. Like, these guys, mate, they'll fucking implode. Like, it'll be absolutely insane. So, yeah, I think that would be a nightmare for them. But again, it's pure speculation. It's just what people are talking about. You would feel to walk away from MIBR, and it seemed by all accounts they walked away from MIBR despite MIBR attempting to keep them. It suggests to me that the offer on the table, it can't just be like, well, Boom have decided to make you the number one team.
Exactly.
It can't be something like that. It has to be something really big.
If it is, I'm so underwhelmed by those players. Like, again, like I said, if you're going to play hardball, you have to have the leverage on your side, or at least know how to create the illusion you do. Right now, as far as I know, and if this Neymar deal doesn't exist, they have nothing. They're just basically bluffing, and MIBR called their bluff. Now, I agree with you. The problem with MIBR's side is, technically, you might be correct. You might call the guy's bluff. It might not be worth that. But the question is, what do you get ended up left with? And as you pointed out, they have nothing, basically. They're just holding a KNG and just saying, a third rebuild KNG? Nervously laughing and hoping he doesn't get a call from fucking Neymar or a red phone or something.
Yeah. So let's do the other stories. There's a couple more I think worth talking about. So obviously we did talk about this earlier. I probably should have segued to it.
By the way, just as a other thing as well.
That's good.
I will also be so sad if Henny has to go and play with Lucas now just because it's his brother. When you consider the year he just came off. Like, Henny has to be up there with some of those players where it's like, his career story is unbelievable. The guy literally got, like, for my money, like twice as good 4 years into his career or something. That's unthinkable. You don't do that. So I actually thought this 2020 Henny was a fucking banger. It was really good. So if he would even consider leaving Furia or just messing at all with that formula, that's just sad in terms of where his career story is, in my opinion. He had a real chance to do stuff. If Major started again tomorrow, he now has a chance to win a Major.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. So we talked about Kassad earlier. I probably should have segued into it if I'd planned out the show. I didn't have time for that today. It was sort of a last minute thing. But looks like he's going to be joining up with the Australians over at Extremum, and we haven't talked about them. So for those who don't know, the 100 Thieves roster that had just started like winning things and making it to finals and actually being good at the end of their time with the org got cut. 100 Thieves going all in and Valorant. They've found this organization, right? Which, by the way, guys, while we're talking about crazy money, I'm probably going to get double tapped for saying this. But when I hear the words, a Russian organization funded by private investors who've got loads of money, I immediately think of organized crime. Can't help it. Sorry, guys. Maybe that's prejudicial of me, but I've been around this business too long to fucking think otherwise. So, just saying, right? But
I've also seen this episode before, I believe. I think I've seen this show before. Is this a rerun? What is this?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. You might be right. And listen, this is where you always have to add the qualifier. I have many Russian friends, many of whom have made money, and they know the game. That's all I'm going to say.
Hundreds of years ago, the Australians went there as criminals to Australia, so there's not necessarily a direct, obvious overlap where, there's no honor among thieves, is there? That's all I'm saying.
No. So anyway, good luck, guys. I hope it works out for you. I hope Extremum, or whatever it's called, Extreme Mums. I don't know. I hope it's not dangerous. But anyway, so Kassad going back and joining them. I mean, that's a roster that not a lot of people are talking about. Remember, it was up at the top of NA, which is where they competed at the time 100 Thieves cut them. It was like one of those weird, inexplicable cuts that sort of started was part of the domino effect we were seeing in NA with all of the orgs leaving and all of the teams leaving. And I'm hearing a rumor that the player they're looking to get is their fifth, and apparently these private investors are willing to break the bank for it. The fifth player they want to get to join that roster is JKS.
He's going to actually leave Col and come back to reform the team.
Rumors and speculation. So I don't know if it's real. But here's what I would say.
That's crazy. That is actually crazy, though.
Now, listen, I'm on a good streak of predictions here. So, I mean, I called Twistzz out and fallen in.
Are you going against it or are you going for it? What do you think? Do you think he joins?
Right. So here's what I'm going to say. I think, right, so when Jason came in to get JKS and brought him into call, JKS was sort of dangling in the wind. I think he got a massive fat contract. I'm also just going to call this, sorry, boys, JKS has been a fucking wet fart. Like, he hasn't had a good time of it in complexity. I know there's mitigating circumstances. I know it's online. I know they're using a motherfucking stand-in. I know Obo sold him down the river. He's just a kid, so don't hate on him, by the way.
Just a circumstance, though, yeah.
But that's
not
just what... Because he said, I don't want to be in Europe no more. He's had a few weeks back in America, and he's tweeting out, looking forward to playing in NAL Europe. Come pick me up. He's one of the best free agents out there. But, you know...
He just went stir crazy.
He went stir crazy, and they should have given him a fucking holiday.
Agreed.
Right? But
they
anyway,
put him in a 6-man and said, "We'll wait 3 months on this one."
Yeah, exactly. Like, go home, see your family, see your friends, live a normal teenage life, and we're going to get you back in the game as soon as possible. But anyway, I think JKS made a fat contract, and I don't think it's necessarily commensurate to where JKS is. Now, listen, I could be wrong on this, but if Extremum are looking to fucking buy JKS, if that rumor is true, and they got mad Russian money, and they're just willing to pay anything. If I'm Jason Lake, I go, all right, motherfuckers, I'll make profit on this short-term deal, and then I'm going to go and land Twistzz. That's how I'm playing the game if I'm Jason Lake.
Put it this way, I agree with you on the side of, like, if I got an offer that was like, it might not even have to be profit, mate. If I just got an offer that was like, you lose a tiny amount from the JKS deal, I wouldn't necessarily be against it, because I agree with you. It hasn't worked out yet. I still think there's potential in that lineup, though. Like, such a good squad of players, I wouldn't necessarily be out on it. The JKS side is the puzzling one to me. Because, listen, I'm not going to speak out of school at all. I'm not, like, great friends with all those players. They're not one of the teams I have all the inside info on. But just as an outsider and knowing some of the things I did know about some of the personalities in the X100 Thieves roster, I also got the vibe that from JKS, it was kind of like, I've done my hard yards playing for fucking Australia, trying to do big things with you guys. Like, it's time for me to go elsewhere and be a star player and be in a proper team that can actually win stuff. So I'll also be surprised if JKS comes back on that one. Like, if I'm JKS, the point in continuing my career is to go for bigger things. It's not to be the best player on the same squad I played for the last 4 years or whatever. Like, that feels like, it just feels a bit like unambitious, you know. I agree with you on the org side, though. It definitely hasn't worked out the way it was supposed to. That was supposed to be a massive blockbuster.
Yeah. I mean, you know, so that, I'm just saying that's what I would do. But I honestly think, like, from what I've heard behind the scenes, like, these guys think big. They want the old roster back. They want the old band back together. And they think they were in a real good place when it all broke apart. And, like, JKS has had to go and do his thing over in complexity. But, like, the investors apparently in Extremum they're fully invested in this, in the sense that they support what the players want. They believe in the players. And, like, all of them boys want to play with JKS again. Because, of course, they do. And I'll be honest, I look at that roster and I look at Kassad moving back there. It's very clear that that group of players has something, right? I'm not saying they're an amazing team, because I don't think they are. I'm not even saying they can go on and be a top 5 team in the world, top 10 team in the world, win trophies or whatever. But they have got something when they come together, like a Voltron. And I think Kassad is essentially sort of missing out on an opportunity to cement his reputation as a coach by going back there. And I think if they get JKS again, probably, yeah, they'll catch a few people.
By the way, we have to do this then. We have to now look at the same news we were talking about last week episode, but from this lens. Because like I said in that episode where I said maybe this deal was already there, so I'm like, this is the problem. If I look at the deal when Kassad was kicked, the way that Cloud9 presented it, they presented it along the lines of, like, it was stylistic differences between Alex and Kassad, right? But I always say this when it comes to decisions, right? There's always one main motivator behind a decision, right? Mm-hmm. It can't be like 5 things at once. So it's awfully suspicious, isn't it? That, like, the opportunity, Richard, to come back with his old squad of players for Kassad, in literally his old squad. He's even going to get JKS back right after his Cloud9 squad. It's not like they failed, but they just didn't start well. You know, they came out the gates a bit slow, like they had a false start at Flashpoint. It's awfully suspicious this all coincides at exactly the same moment. Like, that makes me feel like this feels to me more like the Extremum side was pulling Kassad than it was Kassad trying to leave Cloud9 to go. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like this. This makes the Cloud9 kick sound very suspicious to me.
Yeah, totally. I mean, here's the other thing: would Kassad have gone back if it was going to be a weird 5th pickup, you know, some, you know, Dick Stacey's back in the game or something?
It sounds like all of it had to align at once, which, like I say, that doesn't happen off like, oh, maybe I would join. So you go again and put together the contracts and the deal, and maybe I'll join. That's one of those ones where everyone has to be in before you make the move, isn't it? Because that was the whole thing about this. That's why this, in a way, doesn't surprise me. Because as I said on the last episode, when I heard they were going to make that team, but without JKS, it's like, what's the point in this project? Like, this is just the worst version of 100 Thieves, isn't it?
Well, I mean, and listen, a lot of people have echoed that sentiment. And I think, in a way, I think the players themselves sort of know it and believe it. I think in their hearts, they want JKS back on that roster. And I think, honestly, I mean, I know it's esports. Shit's changing fast. You want to give things time. In reality, in esports, you don't get a lot of time. And Complexity have had a bunch of problems. Like, Obo, really, there's no getting away from it. As I said, I don't want anyone to hate the lad because he is a boy, right? An incredibly talented kid, right? But obviously, he's fucked the team over in a ridiculous fashion. That if he were 21, I'd be calling him a massive cunt. But he's a kid and pandemic and all the excuses, so fine. But but all of those excuses don't matter at the end of the day for what's going on with Complexity. They brought in a star player on a star player contract, and with the exception of the tournament they used to stand in for, I think you should be expecting them to win some of the games that they've won, especially because, Poison's got his game back and there's a lot of positives. So seems to me it's not out of the realms of possibility that JKS just goes to Extremum and we say, thank you for your services. Jason Lake gets a fat contract. He's grinning like a Cheshire cat because he really does love that sports GM mentality. And like you say, you can go out and pick Twistzz. I mean, maybe the door's open for Obo to come back now. I wouldn't do it. I know Jason Lake left Obo and it's a good relationship there, right? By all accounts. And I know that about Jason now. He's evolved into a very sweet and forgiving dude. He wasn't always like that. But the reality is that I wouldn't trust.
Yeah, you'd be one spit and twice shy on that one, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I know.
Bring him back and have to potentially have another year where that can happen. You can't, can you?
I wouldn't trust him not to fucking get homesick again. So I like to say, when I look at some of the free agents that are out there, and this will segue nicely into the other story I wanted to talk about. I think you go and you let JKS go, and if you can get a Twistzz, I say go for it. I think Twistzz is a better player than JKS. Not right now, maybe. Although, actually, probably statistically, not a lot of difference. But I also know enough about Twistzz that he could have gone to Valorant. Mate, he had all his boys gassing him up to come to Valorant. And let's look where Twistzz is at, right? He's young, good looking. He's at a crossroads in his career where he either ends up being a god tier CS player that wins trophies, or he's like the next Scream. And you left asking, he's got huge Instagram following, huge Twitter following, huge YouTube. What the fuck are you on? What the fuck have you done on the server? You know what I mean? And like that would be a travesty if Twistzz ends up like that. So I think Complexity's a good spot for him, and I think it would be a good pickup all round. But here's the other thing. There's another guy that we haven't even talked about in fucking free agency. And I love this motherfucker, BnTeT.
I saw that comment he said where he's open to playing in Europe now, yeah.
Yeah, he said, well, obviously, Gen G's dead. BnTeT has fucking said, I'll play in Europe, I'll play anywhere, I'm staying in CS. Like, mate, I've said it before. I think this is a guy, when you do them top 20 players at the end of the year, he can be in one of them 1 year.
Oh, for sure. His skills are there, yeah.
Yeah, he's fucking sick. But, like, he's just been super unlucky, He played in that Tyloo. I think playing in a Chinese team anyway in general is just a minefield for a variety of reasons. And I'm glad he's away from that. He went to Gen G, right? Then the game just fucking phased out everything he did well. It was like being a Dota player and you just playing a patch where your hero's dog shit. Yeah. And you just got to live with it. That's what happened to BnTeT in CS. He said, I'm not touching the Krieg. I'm not doing it. I won't debase myself to pick up that fucking shit overpowered gun. And Valve will surely fix it. 1 fucking year later, they finally get round to going in the office and going, yeah, everyone's been complaining about the Krieg. Edo, press the button. Yeah, all right, AKs are back, baby. Brilliant. Fantastic. So he didn't debase himself. Then at the end of Gen G, he was popping the fuck off. He looked sick. Mate, back in the AK meta, he was almost untouchable, almost unplayable. I thought he was phenomenal. And then, well, guess what, guys? COVID, bullshit, nonsense, Gen G, dead as a fucking doornail. Like, this guy just needs a fucking break. I've said that about a few people. I've said it about the likes of Refresh and, probably a bunch of other Danish players who never quite got there, probably some NA players. I am telling you, BnTeT is the guy. Like, someone has to go out and give this guy a chance to play on a real team, a solid team. Just give him a 6-month run. He's going to fucking carry you a victory. He's that good. So the question becomes, he's putting it out there saying, I'm open to, playing in Europe. Is there anywhere you would put him?
Put it this way, BnTeT's not a bad shout. And one of the reasons I would consider him is because, as far as I can tell, he has a fucking amazing attitude. Like, he's not someone who's complaining or bothered by anything. Like, listen, as you say about the Ty Lue thing, he's played under very difficult circumstances that normal pros, they can't even comprehend. So, if anything, these are the easy years for BnTeT. This is where you finally get the chance to actually compete at the level you want to compete at against the players you want. And if you get to Europe, in the fucking region you're in. So that's where you get a chance to actually unleash some of that potential. So I think he could potentially be a good player for this team, especially because he's a really solid, seems to have a very good mindset for he doesn't have to demand the resources. He'll just do whatever you need him to do in a team. So the problem I have is this. The obvious move to me is the Twistzz one, because the upside to Twistzz, if he gets his shit together, which I think is almost certain to happen, if it's not this year, it'll be next year. He's just too good at the game. When you have the raw talent someone like him has, it's mental that's causing you not to play the game right. It's not he didn't wake up with half the reaction speed overnight, guys. He's still incredibly mechanically skilled. Yeah. So that tells me maybe it's something in a relationship or where his head's at. Maybe the pandemic shit's got to him. Who knows what it is? Who knows what reason it could be? Or maybe it was just playing with that same group of players for too long. Just grinded him down and he didn't want to be someone. Here's a fact that people don't think about, right? Let's imagine I was the player who could be, in theory, the best player in the team, but I'm not doing the role or the position I need to do to be that best player. Am I really going to go and put my fucking metaphorical job on the line during the middle of a pandemic to get that position? When if I get it, I'm still just playing online bullshit matches, but in a better position? Or am I going to say, fuck it, I'll just ride this out and see how it goes? I'm not interested in this team either. And if people don't want me to do that role, then I won't. So I'll wait till I get on the next squad. The problem I have basically is I really do think, I know it didn't work at Woxic, but I think he's the player where someone's going to pick him up. At the time, he's coming in with terrible stats, but he's just going to be way better in 3 months. He's going to be mega. So I think he would be the one where if these three players, JKS, BnTeT, and Twistzz, if you max out their skill level, so we get to the where you want them to all be,
sure.
Twistzz is the best player, of course.
Yeah.
So if you can add him to this team and he's really good, mate, you could immediately be a top 5 team. That's the scale we're talking about. He's not there now. So then one thing I want to say about this move is this. Now we have to actually start scrutinizing BlameF. Because the logic before went like this. He's so sick individually, which he is. He's doing a pretty good job as an IGL. Yeah, he's doing a pretty good job. But you've now had JKS. Before that, you had Poison who was having his issues. If you get Twistzz and you don't make it work, I'm going to have to start scrutinizing the IGL as well. Because this can't all just be these players.
Sure. I mean, I'll say I think he's had a unique set of circumstances to deal with. And, obviously, I'm a BlameF sort of, I guess, stan in the sense I'm willing, given how good he's been, in the same way I would with Alexi B, I'm willing to forgive certain things, But, so for example, he's had to use a stand-in, I think, different stand-ins as well on more than one occasion, I think 2 occasions. Obviously, he had the issue with Poison being sick and also massively out of form for a period of the year. So and he has carried games individually,
of course,
fragging and everything else. So yeah, you're right. If you couldn't make it work with a player like Twistzz, should that move come about, yeah, I think it's reasonable to scrutinize him. But equally, I'm not in a position where I think we should get there quite yet. I mean, this is all fantasy football shit, mate. None of this might happen, and they might stick with JKS, and then fuck it, judge him on that. Because, like you say, if you level up JKS, he's fucking sick. You level up Twistzz, sick. BnTeT, sick. What a great time to be picking up players in fucking free agency. What a sad time if you let players like this go across the Valorant. Be an atrocity. But yeah, so you don't think that's
it's one of the reasons, by the way, just as an aside, why I don't cheer when the Dignitas players get a new team and when fucking Falling gets another massive contract. These players haven't worked for it. Like, they're not good enough. Like, if I thought Fallen had really put in the hours over the last 3 years trying to level up, and he was in the BlameF scenario you're talking about, where it was like everything else was the reason it didn't happen. Like, maybe Cold Zero was an arsehole, or Fur was in and out of motivation, or Taku went and then came back, and then we had Zeus. Like, that's one thing, but the problem is, like, there's a finite amount of spaces anyway in CS, and right now with the pandemic, we're actually finding out the nightmare is we've got like a fourth of the spots we thought we had because there's a amount of teams that are just willing to leave, and nobody's going to replace them. So that's the problem for me. Is like these. I agree, all these players deserve a chance still. They're not. None of them are washed yet.
No way. And like you say, mate, if Fallen and those boys are still getting chances, then these guys absolutely have to get a chance, you know. So here's the other thing. Here's the last story I want to end on before we go into viewer questions. I don't know if you saw this, but I know it's a gold mine.
Here we go.
It's a gold mine of comedy. So I'm just waiting to see what you want to come out with. Well, so on Steam, there was a bunch of awards. I don't know if you
I haven't seen this, no.
Yeah, well, so what they do is they have like a fucking, every year you vote on your games and they have a bunch of awards, and it's like sleeper hit of the year, and game of the year, and soundtrack of the year. So CSGo was voted the labor of love of the year, right? So what that means is, all right, is that enough people logged onto Steam during those awards to vote for CSGO being a labor of love, which means that, just to explain the phraseology for non-native English speakers, when something is a labor of love, the implication is that, you work at it and you work at it and it's really hard and it's really difficult, but you love it so much, you are compelled. It is the right thing.
Justifies itself, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It is the labor of love. Right, so the idea, like, I don't know what the fuck is going on with the CS community. That people, I want to say it's a joke. I think it's a meme.
It's a meme. They did it.
Yeah, I think people must have done it for a meme. There must be like a CS:GO forum or a subreddit somewhere.
I never predicted that would happen. I would think they'd all hate the game.
Well, so the idea that Valve have somehow that you've just positively reinforced Valve's inactivity. You've said, "Oh yeah, it's a labor of love. We know it's hard. It's so difficult. It is the most popular game on Steam. It is hands down the most popular game Valve have made."
Every time we try to do an episode, Richard, where we're trying to like tell Valve to get their shit together, they go and they just check the numbers. Like, no, sir, the numbers are better than they've ever been. Like, can't win, can we?
Yeah. Well, obviously, I got sick over Christmas, so I haven't even wrote that. I was gonna. I've started it, but I haven't hit them with the big fucking dossier. What they need to do to fix it. Which again, by the way, they are just gonna tell me to stick it up my ass at the end of the day. But I'm gonna do it so I can say at least I fucking tried. Basically, I'm Jack Nicholson and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest trying to lift up that fucking sink to launch it through the window, and he can't do it. But at least I fucking tried. But the
hopefully doesn't end for you the same way as it did, spoiler in that movie.
Of course it is. Of course it's going to, mate. It's already happened.
Is that how it ends? Do I just have to? Do I go like, oh, and then I break out myself and just get out?
Yeah, no, you and Sam have to hold the pillow over my face. That's how it has to go down. It's the only way, I think, and it will take two of you. But fair enough. But yeah, like, what madness is this, Duncan? Where we live in a world where like the community is so, like, honestly, like, I don't know.
How many cocked motherfuckers?
Yeah, mate.
Like, what? Complain and then vote the game like the game I love the most of the year.
Yeah, like. No, but you've just said to Valve, like, thanks. Like, shit in my mouth, please.
This is like that story, which actually, it's actually old enough now that some of the people watching this might not know this. I think it was Call of Duty 4, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. There was a Call of Duty that when it came out, all the fans in the run-up were like, I'm not going to buy this. This is a fucking disgrace. And they all did this massive, they did like sign-up lists where you could say you were going to boycott it on release. And they all said, if we just agree we don't buy it, right, it'll get their attention.
It was Modern Warfare. There you
go. And famously, it's one of those classic examples, funnily enough, ties into politics, where people say one thing but then do the other. Because the joke is, everyone who signed those lists just bought it like day of release. And in doing so, as we're sitting here, sent exactly the opposite message to the dev. Because what you're saying to the dev there is, listen, I'll kick up a stink, I'll complain a bit, but you absolutely can at any moment shit in my mouth and I'll eat it and say, delicious, can I have some? Like, it's just outrageous. Like, you guys are so dumb. Because that was the one everyone told me. Like, I even know people who to my face just told me, like, yeah, I said I'd never buy it. I did buy it on the day of release. God, you seem like a serious human being then.
Yeah, but it's the same. It's like, right. Think about all the opportunities we have to send a message to Valve. And we don't do it in CS. In Dota, they do it all the fucking time. The threads calling out shit, boycotting this, like, no more. Let's not purchase cosmetics because they haven't got them working.
They get mad over shit that's not even fair, mate. Like, I remember that story. It's one that'll always stick in my mind because it showed me how bad the Dota subreddit was. It was when the Dota subreddit was outraged that Valve had allowed fucking Admiral Bulldog to go to that TI to be like a caster, and then he didn't get let in. When if you actually read the details, because I know you're like me, Richard, you actually click the fucking store and read the details. When you read the details, it was all his fault, and he was using an old player visa from like a year or two prior while going as a caster, and just straight up just telling like fucking immigration.
And then lied. Lied to an American immigration officer.
Reddit made it as though like Gabe Newell could have just called up like Trump, like, yeah, just let him in, will you? Let him in. Just stop being silly. Like, they made it sound like that, dude. Like, even though in that scenario it was one of the few times Valve was just completely right, weren't they? Like, wasn't their fault at all, was it?
Yeah, no. And like everything about that subreddit, mate. Like the least bit thing, like, right? Can you even imagine, right? Because I obviously play Dota. I play more than CS now. I've done for years. Can you even imagine being so deluded? Like, the amount of threads I've read, Valve have just abandoned this game. Like, the amount of content it fucking gets is outrageous, mate. They even dropped a surprise dietide because they've got the Valve employees so fucking cuckolded. It's like, in CS, we're the cuckolds, right? Like, which, maybe there's a world where cuckoldry can be cool. I don't know. I've yet to find it, but, whatever. But over in Dota, it's the Valve staff. It's like some mad circle of cuckoldry. It's completely fucking insane. The stuff like, oh, God, they're threatening that they might not drop a bunch of money into the TI. You don't even have a scheduled date for TI, and you're breaking records. That community will never allow that to slip. They will break it. I said this will be the first year the record don't break. Broke it, of course they do, because it's all they ever want to go on about. It's that mad thing. It's that mad thing.
Dude, that's how genius Valve. Like, unintentionally, because there's no way they knew this, Rich. But that's the craziest part. As you said, people always used to say in esports, well, what's the year when it'll stop going down? I realized the same thing a few years ago. People have actually built, this is so mental to say out loud, people who play a competitive video game and enjoy watching the biggest tournament in that have now directly correlated their human being personality with how much money that tournament crowdfunds. Now, when you've done that, that's like you've got the golden goose. Like, you don't do anything to fuck with that. Like, when you have morons who, like, basically what we're implying, and I think it's true, is if it was ever a year where it would have gone down, Dota morons will just give 3 times as much and make the number go up. Like, that's how mad they are. So I agree with you. The idea that, like, they then think their game isn't cared for, like, mate, their game's almost in the perfect spot. Not entirely, it's got a few problems, but, like, it's about the best scenario for a dev community relationship, surely.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love it, mate. Just imagine a world where you sell the idea of, like, listen, guys, if you all chuck your money in this fucking pot here, right, it's my pot, right? If you all chuck it in, right, we all get to say we're the best because we've got all this money in a pot.
And obviously, I'd keep most of it because, it's my pot in that, isn't it? But listen, I'd put you a massive tournament like 25 mil. You want 25 mil? Then give me 75. I mean, just listen, you give me money, I'll give you 25 mil. What can I tell you?
Right, and like, you would go, what do I get out of this? You get to say you're the best. But how am I the best? Because we've got the most money. But we haven't got the most. You've got the most money. Yeah, but it's my pot. I'm letting you share in the glory. And you've fucking hummed and hard about it and thought that's a good scheme. So, yeah, they're probably never going to let that number drop, like, no matter what happens. Because you're right, it's ingrained in their identity.
It's their version of fighting off the dead game StarCraft 2 memes.
Yeah.
Like, as long as TI always has the record-breaking number, everything's fine in the world, isn't it?
Which, by the way, what they don't realise they've done by doing that is, first of all, if you ever want to stick it up Valve's arse and really make them think about what they're doing with your game, TI's how you hurt them.
Of course. If that number ever went drastically down, they'd have to change something.
Yeah, right? But, okay, good job, idiots. But also on top of that, right, you are contributing to the fucking ecosystem, or rather lack of, that creates a lot of your Dota problems.
Is the worst the rest of your scene is at the moment, unfortunately. Yeah.
And like everyone in the scene knows this, by the way. But like, so credit to guys like Kyle, people like that who actually do talk about this. But there's a lot of Dota talent that won't even say it because the very Valve will turn around and say, this person is an ass and we will not be hiring them for TI. TI's the biggest show in town. Are you even a Dota caster if you're not at a TI? That's how they think about it. 30 motherfuckers get hired if you're not on that list. Tantrums are had. So, but the idea, mate, I'll tell you, the idea that fucking CS is a labour of love compared to, like, even other games on the book, like, I can't believe we've done that. I'm like that dude getting punched from the side in the old meme. I can't believe you've done this. Like, our community is fucking so dumb, it's unbelievable. Like, you've just said to Valve, basically, everything's okay. And it's fucking not. It's so far from okay. So, bollocks to it. Right. That's that. There weren't any other topics I left out.
No, that's it for now. That's it for now. We'll be back next week with another one.
Oh, of course, mate. So we got the viewer questions. Let's get into that. For those who don't know, if you give us money, we will grace you with answers to questions. Because we are scum. We are capitalist scum and must be destroyed. So anyway, let's get into them. BP420. Why is it every time I try to go where I really want to be, it's already where I am? Is it because I'm already there? Philosophy's your world.
I mean, the problem with that is that like, I'm just going to say this, right? Is that supposed to be like song lyrics or something, and he's just quoting it by being silly or something? Is that like from a famous song or something?
I think because he knows that we've experimented with psychedelics, what he's trying to do. Is get us into a space where we debate the nature of being and presence.
I would say that I can actually spin. Yeah, in that case, I'll do that. I'll just spin it into like actually a value. I'll answer that as value and isn't just a fucking joke. So basically, what I would say is this: there is actually like a wisdom to that, which is in life in general. It's why I know it's a cliche, but it's one of those ones that's only a cliche because it's so true. But life really is the journey, not the destination. Because the problem is the destination might be shit when you get there. You never know what's going to like. And you're not the person yet who is going to be at that destination. You will be a different person when you arrive at that destination. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people in esports who the person who started out the esports journey and dreamt of getting to whatever position, big caster, player, whatever. The problem is you're a different person by the time you arrive there. So the same guy, I'll use the Brazilians from the beginning of the episode, the same Brazilians who were sleeping 3 to a bed and probably making $200 a month, put them 5 years down the line and they'll be going 15,000 a month to be the 40th best team, 20, or you can take it up your ass. Like the same guy, because that's a different guy at that point in time. That's the point. If it was the original guy, it'd be super shocking. But the question is, what happened to that guy on the journey that made him the arsehole at the end? So what I would say in that scenario is, I wouldn't actually worry about where you're going. What I would worry about is what are your protocols that are getting you there? Because in my opinion, I've done my life the opposite way. What I've tried to do is make it so that what I'm into at the moment is the right stuff for me. And then I just trust wherever I end up will be the right place. I don't usually have like a destination that I'm like gunning for and I'm trying to get there no matter what. And I'm going left, right. No, I just sort of like, I find my way to where I need to be, basically. I think it's the opposite approach. Makes more sense in life.
So I've been informed it's actually the lyrics from System of a Down from their eponymous album, the song Sugar, which I haven't listened to in about 15, 20 years.
Brilliant album, though. It was the first one.
Came out in, what, 98 that did?
It was a banger of an album.
So yeah, I think I was just about to go to university. I don't know, but anyway. So apologies for not recognizing it. I will just say, System of a Down. I haven't listened to them in a long, long time. So
that's one of the good things about whatever's
going
on in the world.
Yeah, that's one of the good things about that horrific war.
Technically, is true.
Yeah, you're right.
Everything possible. It's horrible.
Regardless, I'm still going to answer the question on the same sort of philosophical level, and just say that. One of the things that I've definitely found about life is like when you are desperately life isn't what happens when you're desperately sort of trying to get to somewhere. Like so many people, like they set themselves this mad little, like a path. And I'm going to be here, and I'm going to be here at 22, and I'm going to be here at 24, and by 30, I'm going to have this. And it's like the old saying, if you want to make God laugh, you tell him your plans, right? Like I would never if I'd succeeded in the way I'd mapped out my life when I was in my
Probably shit, right?
20s. No, but I wouldn't be here where I am now. I wouldn't enjoy the quality of life.
Chance.
Yeah, I wouldn't enjoy the quality of life I had now. I mean, like, I had to sort of fail repeatedly to even get a whiff that this existed. And then it became a lifelong passion. So I think when you think to yourself, it's actually a good way to think about things. Like, where you are probably is on some level where you actually need to be and where you deserve to be. It's the place you put yourself, and not just you, but like contrivance, circumstance, all these other forces that operate on you. I think a lot of people spend a lot of time negatively putting themselves down because they're not somewhere else, and they don't take the time to look at where they actually are and what that means and the sort of profundity of what it says about your personality. You know, like here's so to sum it up. One of the things that I used to say when I thought I was going to get out of esports after a year or two, one of the things I would say, you know, in a derisory fashion, was to basically say, like, oh, the people in esports are basically people who'd failed at everything else, and that's the reason they're here, right? You know, the failed businessmen that run bedroom organizations. But here's the thing: failure in and of itself is not. It's not bad. It's not necessarily always a negative, and that was projection on my part. Because I had failed in other areas. You know, I walked away. I had a great sales job. I had a ton of money. I had a wonderful cocaine habit that I was able to maintain. It was fantastic. I was slim. You know, I had a full raging head of hair. I was living the dream. I'm making a fortune, putting half of it up my nose on a weekend, and then going to sales meetings on a Monday. It was what I wanted.
You could have been the You could have been the original.
It was like a shit Wolf of Wall Street. But, you know, that started to break down. It couldn't sustain itself. It wasn't what was nourishing my soul. The money didn't mean anything. I realized that. I'd grown up really poor, and I thought money would fix the hole. You know, it would fix the wound. It doesn't. It doesn't mean any. When you grow up without something, actually what you realize is you don't need more of it. It's that you can appreciate having less of it. And you should use that strength. So that's what I did. And then as a result of that, I was like, well, what else do I like? And, you know, a little bit of procrastination, a little bit of not wanting to be an adult, a little bit of not wanting to be a fucking grown up in a conventional sense where, you know, I was looking at my mates, and even in our mid-20s, you know, people are like, right, well, I've knocked out 2 kids. That's the end of it. And just all their opinions and life just drained from their face, just their souls sucked out of them, and just mediocre drones, and can't even sit in a room with them and have a conversation anymore or make a joke or whatever. You know, they essentially they've essentially chosen something that I never wanted and could never accept. But equally, I did for a long time have a super sort of almost like a self-loathing about ending up in esports. It did feel like a waste of my time.
Oh, no, mate, I've had the same thing. I've literally told people this before. If you notice, right, there's a thread that runs through my career that I always talk about in my content, where if ever someone brings up that classic trope that goes like this: oh, this pro player who's really good now at the game, his parents told him he shouldn't play the game and shouldn't go pro. I always stress that his parents are right. Now, they weren't in this specific case, but as a general rule, they're right. Like, those sound like parents that care about you, mate. And the reason I say that is because I know that unless you're one of the lucky ones, I know what the failed esports life looks like, and it sucks. So similarly, I used to say the same thing. I don't, by the way, try to like style on all the people in my past and be like, dickheads, you all thought I was wasting my time. I was. Yeah. You know, at that time it wasn't that cool a job, was it? There wasn't the opportunities. Like, no, and listen, I agree with you. Like, there was a point in time where basically I was a failure because I was still in esports. That's because esports itself hadn't taken off, sure. But at the same time, that's also, it ties into the point you were making, though, mate. It's like the place you are contains all the lessons you need to learn to get wherever you're going to go next. Just the point is, you can't know, can you? Because, like, as I said, you won't be that person anymore.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's like you say, I fought a lot with people because I couldn't accept. It's like, you can't be a true believer in something and secretly hate yourself for being a part of it. These are non-compatible ideas, and for a long period of time, I suffered with that cognitive dissonance. And I think a lot of unhappiness comes from the fact that people do things. And it can be anything. It can be a job. It can be another pursuit. It can be a passion, a hobby, something on the side, writing, things like this. And people do it and they define themselves by it, but it's actually not really what nourishes their soul. And so what happens is they secretly know inside themselves, I shouldn't be doing this. This is a waste of my time. I need to do something else. There's that one thing I want to do. And they never pursue it, though, because they're comfortable with what they've got over here. And the idea of losing everything you've got, that's good. To roll the dice on having something that might be better, not a lot of people make that investment. And then what happens is people come up to you and go, you fucking daft cunt. You're just doing that, are you? You're just a bricklayer. Suck my dick. You just work in Mackie D. Suck my, whatever it is. And so people who define themselves by that get super defensive, not because they are like, no, I do genuinely love this. It's because they don't. It's because they don't want to be there. And you've actually identified the place you can really hurt somebody in the soul. Because we're all on a clock. We all know when, right? Like this idea, one of the worst lies ever peddled to the human psyche are these dickheads who tell you you can do whatever you want if you just put your mind to it. That is the worst lie to tell anybody, because it doesn't prepare you for the reality. And the reality is that when you're a child and you are forming your personality and you are becoming an emotional being, an intellectual being, you are going to have limitations placed on all of this stuff, right? And not only that, the things you think you want then might not be the things you want later. But because of the investment there, you now lose out here. You can never know what future you is going to want. And the only person that can set up future you is past you. And if past you works against future you's interests, what do? You're stuck with it. All human existence is sunken fallacy. That's the problem. And so, unfortunately, the terror that we all exist on an existential level is, I'm going to die and I'm not going to get the life I wanted. Well, listen, brothers and sisters, I'm going to tell you, that applies to 99.
Everyone, basically, yeah.
That applies to almost all of us. And I would say to you, in the decadent West, capable of enjoying plenty of stuff, I would say spare a thought to the people that never even get the opportunity to sort of conceive and have this, conceptual idea that there's a life out there for them. Some people just die in abject poverty. They die of treatable illnesses in third world countries. You, to even have that thought, that existential dread, are one of the lucky ones. And so embrace where you are and try and see the positives within it, and that's what I've done. I've learned to love esports and what I've achieved within it and take pride in it, because I know I can't get the years back. I can't be anywhere else. And for good or ill, this was my corner of the world, and I tried to shine it up as much as I could before I die. And that's it. That's what that's life, unfortunately. So I don't know if there's any profound lessons in that or stuff that hasn't been said before, but where you are, it's probably where you are going to be for a while. And it's probably where you've set yourself up to be. So try and maximize it. There you go. System of a Down. Reykjavik on Steam. What's a bigger mess? The NA Counter-Strike scene or K trying to cook mints? You haven't seen K's cooking.
What's he referring to there? Is it for your stream or something? Yeah,
so K's cooking is you'll just have to watch it to get the joke. She's a British troglodyte who can't cook food, and the running joke is she tries and fails.
People, and today
Closing that tab immediately. I don't think I need to see it.
Yeah, no, good. Excellent.
Just looks like some council estate scum.
Right.
I say that as council estate scum.
Yeah, I mean,
we're all council estate scum.
I was going to say, looks like council estate. Yeah, looks
like
my mum.
Exactly. I'm that behind. I'm trying to move on. I'm trying to be with the glittering ones in Elysium. Still warm.
Right, Alice the Alchemist. For Thorin and Rich, and I apologise because I don't want to stir up drama, but during the Berlin Major of last year, that poker twat, Doug Polk, tried to act like some fake esports expert. would you guys have entertained entertained a debate with him about esports betting odds and how they work?
Now I remember what he's talking about. Yeah. Basically, the guy they're talking about, it's funny, I actually used to follow competitive poker quite heavily, but I dipped on that about, I'd say, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I just didn't stop following it completely. So I actually barely knew who this guy was. But I've looked him up. He actually has won millions and millions of dollars online. He actually is apparently some super duper poker player. But if people don't know, during the Starladder Berlin Major, he kept coming at me. I can't remember if it was me and Sean Gers or just me alone. But basically, he kept coming at me and some of the other broadcast talent and arguing really weird angles. The sad thing about it, by the way, is he actually accidentally ended up being right, because basically he was saying that Astralis was definitely going to win this major, but he was doing that thing where people who aren't from esports don't know. You can't use data the same way because the time span that's relevant in esports is so much smaller. So what he was doing, Richard, was he was taking all those stats of that Astralis lineup and going look, they win this tournament and that one. And it's yeah, but that was 8 months ago, mate. Now they're actually not the best team. Team Liquid is now. And he just couldn't get this through his head because he thought, coming from stats, he made the classic mistake they all do, the Cubans of the world, which is this. They think, well, I come from a real field with skill set and specialities and technique, but I'm going to go to this clown area now where no one has any skill in any area whatsoever, and I'm just going to be a god king to them, in the land of the blind. The one-eyed man is king. I don't know everything, but I'm one-eyed, right? In this scenario, what they don't realize is we have an entire area already where you're walking in, idiot. So basically, this guy tried to just sort of take the angle of I know mathematics and stats, therefore I'm going to predict all these things. But in doing so, he just came off looking like an absolute moron who knew nothing about the space. As far as I can tell, he's maybe a casual fan of CS, but he definitely he was trying to present himself as some sort of super expert.
Basically, what he said was as well. He said that betting odds and betting websites are so sophisticated that whatever the odds
are,
almost
implied they get it right every time.
He said whatever the odds are, that is inarguably the favorite. Now, what he didn't know, because I think I just blocked the cunt. Again,
it's just a moron. I didn't.
I like I say, my policy.
The problem is he wasn't interested enough to demand a reply.
No, he's nothing. He's nothing.
But,
listen, right? You can be stupid on one issue, but if you're an intellectual heavyweight and a creative titan in another field, I'll entertain you. If Christopher Hitchens said all esports players were wankers, it wouldn't change my view about him, just like the fact he supported the war in Iraq, which is an absolute abomination and a stain on his eternal reputation, in my opinion. But it turns out he was also a wicked mind, a titanic writer, and just a great orator and somebody worth listening to with great insight about life and things like that. So, you know what? I'll let him off, right? Doug Polk is not a Christopher Hitchens. He's a fucking cunt who can fucking play poker. That's that. That's the end of the story. I do not put any value on that life skill. So
basically, he's not interested in having a debate with this cunt, is he? What would the point be? What's he going to bring to the table?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, because I even interacted with him and then I just blocked him. But for those who are interested, I know loads of you, when these VODs go out, you like to talk, I'm blocked on Twitter, he blocks everyone. Here's my policy. If you're a liar or a moron, I block you. That's that. No, third option. You show symptoms of being chronically mentally ill, i.e. delusions, i.e. you're imagining things that don't happen. If any of those things, I'm just out. And the reason is this. I don't like interacting with liars because I myself am not a liar. I don't like interacting with morons because it's pointless, saps your energy, and I am not a moron. And when it comes to the mentally ill who imagine things about you, the kindest thing to do is not interact with them so they can get better, because you're only actually fueling the delusions by giving them this idea of irrelevance. So this is why I block people. That's all there is to it. It's not that I'm a snowflake and I can't handle opinions and you're a mad, edgy opinion's going to break me in half. It's just you're a moron. Unfortunately, Doug Polk fell into the category of being a moron because he was essentially saying the favorite will always win. If you distill his argument down, in esports, the favorite will always win. Well, of course, we know, actually, if you were to compare esports to mainstream sports, pick any sport, actually, upsets are probably more prevalent in esports because of a variety of factors.
For sure.
And having the insider knowledge to be able to call that when it's happening, to know, for example, when a team is about to implode and they're going to the last tournament on a fucking wing and a prayer and they have no particular, desire to win. They just want to get the fuck out and get onto the next gig. Knowing things like that is way more important. In fact, it is a lot easier for someone like me and Duncan to be like an Ace Rothstein character from Casino who knows about the quarterback who's got his girlfriend pregnant and it's all up in his head. And he go, you know, this is our world. And we know it. You want to play the odds and the percentages? Fine, I respect that. That's what poker players do. No issue with that whatsoever. But to create a lie and say, you know, oh, the odds are always right because of X, Y, and Z, and there is no genuine expertise that I can't fathom because I'm a poker player and I can do maths, is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it's insulting to what we do. So I was never going to like it. Now, to answer the final part of your question, Alice, to have a debate with him, I wouldn't even be in the same. He just looked like a fucking greasy chancer. He looked like a greasy chancer. He had something to sell because he was talking about how he was doing his own esports consultancy or some esports odds thing. He had something to sell, and he was discrediting the likes of Duncan, me, everyone else in the space, every other analyst. He was doing that because he had something to sell. He's a fucking grifter, and you can't debate a grifter. All you do when, right, I mean, first of all, debates, the world of Twitch and YouTube debates are the dumbest thing to ever happen. A debate is an expert in a field, two experts in a field, coming together with usually diametrically opposed opinions, and a moderator gives them time and suitable pressure to see who can come up with the best ideas and the best argumentation in a limited time. That, my friends, is a debate. What happens on Twitch and YouTube, two morons who have a cursory understanding of the topic they're talking about agree to turn up on a stream for the purposes of money. They shout at each other belligerently with no moderator for 3 hours. Nothing gets debated, nothing gets discussed, nothing gets resolved. They change the topic every 5 fucking seconds, trying to get into that endless stream of gotchas. And at the end, their audiences, their fans, say that their guy won.
No matter what.
No matter what. No matter
Yes.
what. And that was why, when all them cunts were doing it, you never saw me doing it. Yeah. I can debate, I can do that. I'm from that fucking world. I've moderated enough debates with actual thinkers, actual people with brains and ideas and something to say. Like, I could do that, but mate, it's not worth it. It's like the Twitch and YouTube format is just so dumb. So why would I debate that guy who would come on, grift, and try to sell his product?
That's the problem. You wouldn't be able to trust, like, in good faith that this guy was actually coming to have a real discussion or debate. Like, almost certainly it would just be what you're saying. He would just be trying to get you gotchas all the time or just drag you into some area about poker that you don't know about. In which case, like, basically, I would just describe it like this, Alice. I'd flip it back on you and I'd say this, right? Why would Doug Paul want to do a debate with us? Right? If you can come up with a reason, I don't know what it is, by the way, except for what Richard's saying, which is, as far as I can tell, he's famous in a different area, and he just decided, because he's famous in that area, and I'm assuming people probably think he's a big deal and kiss his ass, he thought he could waltz into any other area and they'd accept him as well. So the point is, I can vaguely figure out a reason why he might want to do it. Why would I want to do it? Like, what's he going to teach me? If I want to go and learn, by the way, about betting odds, I'll go and get like the best bettor in the whole world or something. Or some fucking like super like advanced student who's just written like his fucking thesis on it or whatever. Like, I won't just get some random guy who's just a really good poker player and being rude. Like, that's not the premise from which this would ever be spawned, especially because, as Richard just pointed out, that's not our shtick. Like, you think I haven't been asked a million times to go and debate morons about stuff. But if I don't like him, especially if I don't respect him as a person, I'm very rarely ever going to be interested in doing that. It just sounds like a waste of everyone's time.
I'll just add as well, I actually did the betting odds when I worked at Heaven Media for a number of betting companies, and some of their proposals at the start were absolutely insane. It would have lost them so much money. If Ben Woodward's in the chat, he can tell you about this. All I'm going to say is they were giving long odds. It was the end of source, and this betting platform was giving like still unbelievably decent odds on very games who hadn't lost like a tournament in 4 fucking years in like various iterations of their team. And they'll go, yeah, but anyone can lose on like any given day. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, everyone will just put money on very games, and with those odds, you will undoubtedly lose money. So no, these betting companies aren't as fastidious always, especially when they move into areas that they're not familiar with and haven't been doing for years. First off, what are your in-depth thoughts about on the Esports Observer tweet that Thorin tweeted out, listing Magnus Carlsen as the top earner of 2020. I didn't see this. What did you tweet?
Basically, it wasn't me. As he said that, I'm replying to it. Esports Observer did a tweet which was like the top 10 earners in esports, and then they just had Magnus Carlsen #1 because apparently he played chess but online.
Right.
So they're now counting, no joke, Richard. As long as you play chess through a computer, that's now esports, right? This is where I point out, right? I know as a colloquial term, we have to make it pretty broad because it is just competitive video game tournaments. So, for example, even if I might be mean and say Hearthstone isn't really an esport, it sort of is because it has a lot of the other trappings of the scene of an esport, has a similar vibe to even has some of the same fucking people from esports. The problem is this. If you make chess an esport, you are going to utterly invalidate esports. Like, do people not get how instantly the second chess is an esport? Well, now the salaries are all based on chess. The prize money is based on how many 100 years it's been around is based on chess. Now I can't talk about Rafa being a genius at Quake because it wasn't like Capablanca in chess fucking 100 years ago. Like, give me a break. Like, at that point, you pushed the definition beyond the point of parody at that point.
Was that money though? Was that stuff he just won in online tournaments?
I believe so. I believe they're saying it was just online this year because I'm assuming everything was online this year. So I'm guessing it being over a computer is being esports.
I don't know, mate. So I've always believed on a philosophical level that if it's competitive and it involves a computer or a similar or a computing device, even a mobile phone, whatever, I believe it's an esport essentially on some level. So where I would have an issue is if that was some of his in-place chess tournaments, like real chess tournaments with a board and pieces, which can't be esports because where's the E part of it? But if you do it online and only online, then imagine a world, for example, where we have chess players who play competitive chess, never play online. They don't want to. They want to sit down, look someone in the eye, watch the moves, watch the beads of sweat. They press the. They'll never do it online. They don't want to. They don't like it. They can't win in that world. And then you have people who generationally are just brought up with the internet and everything else, and they play online and exclusively online. So you have that schism in the chess world. For me, it wouldn't be crazily egregious to say the people that play online chess and only online chess are esports competitors.
Well, okay, then let's go further. Why is it literally every single thing that involves a computer esports then? Because there's no sport and it's just a computer, that's it.
Well,
if I make a tournament tomorrow, are you ready?
Yeah.
And the tournament is it's a computer version of Monopoly, and we all play it, and someone wins $1 million, are they top of that list? Because the Magnus Carlsen was like 400k or something. So should they be top of a list of esports champions of the year? The person who won my Monopoly tournament.
Oh God! See now,
still just a game, isn't it? It's just a game on the computer.
It's a game and it's online, and it's
someone in the chat give a good definition that esports has to be a sport you can only play on a computer. So chess, you can play.
That's not a bad one.
Poker,
that's not a bad one.
Yeah,
because by the way, what I like about that is, I know people are going to get mad about it, but I've always felt like FIFA isn't really an esport.
No, so that's the other thing.
I know what people mean. Like, I don't mind when people count it. Obviously, none of these things I really mind about.
I've gone back and forth on that.
I've
gone back and forth on that.
Yeah, I was going to say FIFA is different because a lot of the stuff you do in game isn't relative to football. Like, it's time finishing. It's more like frame perfect button presses, which is something we know in games. So even though the sport is football, what you're doing, you're not playing football when you're playing
That's
FIFA.
true.
You're hitting like frame stuff and you get.
It's pretty different from real football, of course. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one for me because I've always said the esports that are based on real sports, very often they're self-defeating. Because what happens is you go, a huge FIFA tournament, people watch it and they go, well, why wouldn't I just watch the real thing? It's too much of a reminder of real sports for them to understand the excellence of esports. Like, literally, when they watch a player do a mad fucking score a worldie on FIFA, they think it's still Neymar doing it, or fucking Ibrahimovic doing it. Because on some level, they understand there's a statistical input to it, but they don't think it's the player's skill, So it's very hard with casuals to sort of get into like Madden and FIFA and Pro Evo and anything that's based on a real sport. Yeah, it is a hard one.
But this way, I'll go one further.
Magic's a good example as well.
If we're going to use these examples, then we need to just get rid of the term esports. It's a waste of everyone's time. Like what? Okay. Remember, the point of words is to communicate, right? What am I communicating when I say the word esports? If it could be me playing chess or me playing Counter-Strike, almost nothing. Almost nothing. And all I communicate to you there, Rich, is I have a computer. That's it.
Yeah, that is fair. You know? And I would also go so far as to say one of the things that's really annoyed me about esports, and the thing I think that is the most diminishing aspect of esports, is that it's become conflated with gaming and streaming culture, which it absolutely isn't. It is a niche within that.
Agreed.
It was like when everyone was blowing up Ninja and going, he's an esports superstar because he's stomping pubs in Fortnite. That's not what esports is to me.
It's just an entertainer.
And so here's where, like, I'll need you to check me here because you're the one person I trust to do it. Am I logically fucked if I say I consider someone that plays chess electronically to be more of an esports competitor than someone who just stomps Fortnite pubs with no competitive element?
No, because I actually think the competitive element's also key. Like, I agree with you completely. That's another thing I hate, by the way, is that Fortnite is a game where I'm going to go ahead and guess like 1% of ever matches in Fortnite ever were competitive, and yet it's treated as though it's an enormous esport. It's not. It's an enormous casual game that has a small tangential esports component. So these are the point I'm making here is, by the way, even though this is just a throwaway tweet, these are important definitions that we have to actually be able to step forth.
Yeah,
because the reason, I'll go back to what I brought up at the beginning. One of the immediate reasons I immediately have like a visceral, emotional resistance to this concept is exactly as I said. It ruins all the definitions of what esports was. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, think about the things in esports. Like, when you discuss them, it's already bad enough that we have like tournaments like WESG, where if I say, well, who made the most money in 2017, I have to count that instead of like a real tournament. Yeah. So I already am having to split hairs and be like I'll use terms like a real tournament, which is obviously already going to be triggering some people. But if you're going to make it this broad, like I say, what's the point in the term anymore? Like, to me, if I say esports, no matter what the game is, it's like super hardcore. It's a video game, probably. Like that. I know technically you can count chess as that, but I feel like you're just stretching it to the point where I don't know what the point of it. Like, what would the benefit of counting it as an esport be? That's what I don't. Aside from esports gets to flex that Magnus Carlsen's on their list. Like, I get for them why there's a benefit. For the rest of us, I don't know what the benefit would be.
No, and I suppose when you frame it like that, it makes sense to me. It's like the one thing I'm always worried about is like what makes esports great is that it can be so broad. And I've seen crazy shit, mate. I've been at fucking Angry Birds tournaments at Finish Lands, and I've covered like mobile gaming tournaments. I've done multiple games, that range from obscure fighting games, and I've been all over the place when it comes to esports, and I like that. I like that there is if you have a game that requires a certain skill set, and you can compete with somebody else, and you could definitively prove that you are the best at that game based on that skill ceiling and your skill within it. I'll always welcome it into the esports fold. But I will also add, you are right. If you start doing that with someone like chess, suddenly the history of our game, which started in the arcades, essentially, in the late 70s and early 80s, that's truly where esports begins. All of a sudden, our history is so stupidly stretched backwards. It now makes no sense and you're right, it loses its worth and its value by including that. So maybe there's nothing wrong with sort of including that. I also add as well, having a chess player that's made a ton of money on a list is like sort of massively insulting to like the Call of Duty players and stuff that like have maintained the level of excellence over so many periods. So yeah, it's a tough one for me. I guess we'd have to sort of freeze chess out then. It's the only way, right? So, all right. Anyway, appreciate that tweet, Fursock. Carv, as someone who's lived in Amsterdam for a few years, I'm very curious to hear Thorin's take on Dutch food, because I know he is a cuisine expert. I would like him to rate the following from best to worst: fries with mayonnaise, bitterballen, capsalon, a sad vending machine, Fibo croquette.
Okay.
So
Right.
you've got 4 options: fries and mayonnaise.
Question.
Yeah.
I'll check this with you. Right, of all those things there, right? You've obviously had fries and mayonnaise. Everyone's had that who's been there. The other ones are a little bit more obscure though. Like, have you ever had bitterballen before or a croquette? Have you ever had those two things?
Right. So just describe it to me, and I'll tell you about it.
Croquette looks like almost like a big fish finger. It looks like it's breaded. It's like sort of sausage. No, that one.
In it.
That one's the inside of it is almost like a Finder's crispy pancake. You know, where it's sort of like whipped together meat.
Yeah. I've had that.
I mean, they describe it as ragu. It's like a whipped together meat inside. That one's like a classic one from a kebab shop.
Yeah, I've had that.
Bitterballen's like a ball version of that you have a mustard.
Yeah, I've had that.
And then the capsulon is one where it's like they get a bunch of fries and then they put some kebab meat over it, and then they put some cheese on top, and they put some salad. Again, these are all classics from the kebab shop. Like, the joke he's making there is he must just know I'm a stoner and have obviously been in the kebab shop a million times.
Well, obviously, I've been going to Holland since the fucking 90s as well. Like, so, you know, I eat this when I'm pissed.
If people have never had all these things, if there's any of them you've never had, give them a go, actually, because for kebab food, they're not bad, actually. Of those ones, let me see, what would I rate number 1 out of that? Like, the problem with fries is fries themselves can be so variable. So fries...
Gotta be hot.
Yeah, exactly. So unless it's like the best place, fries can't be number 1. I don't think they can do very. I'd probably actually put bitterball in number 1. That's pretty good. Fries with mayonnaise number 2. If people don't know, mayonnaise is also very different in the Netherlands and Belgium. Like, they have like a more creamier one. It's more yellow.
I like it. Yeah.
In England, I actually hate mayonnaise. I never used to eat Hellman's mayonnaise, which is the big brand in the UK, the really white one, because it's too eggy. Like, I'm not a big fan of eggs. Yeah. So fries with mayonnaise in the Netherlands pretty good. Capsulon's probably after that. I agree with him. The Febo croquette's probably the worst. Febo's a place that you go to, and it's like where they prepare it, and it's kind of like they have in America, and they put them in those little windows, and then so instead of having to wait in a queue, you rush in and get the burger by putting like in the old days a coin in, or you put your card against it, and the little like, what would you describe it as, locker thing opens up and you take the burger.
Same things like that in Germany too, where it's like you can get a fucking beer and some fucking sad, definitely gonna give you food poisoning, like fucking hot. Was at one point
it's just the sort of thing people do in like a station or something when you're on a rush, you know, you don't want to wait in a massive queue. So I would say the Febo croquette's probably the worst. The best croquette's probably like it's probably like a real kebab shop one with like satay in it or something. Or even if you want to go with the chain one, the Smullers one in the airport, not the airport, the fucking train stations are usually better than Febo's like the cheapest one basically. So that's usually not that good. So I would say overall that's my ranking. Is there any other? Let me think. Is there anything else I should recommend from Netherlands?
Ollie Ballen, that oil ball.
I'm not massive fan of those actually. Mad for those.
How's no one talking about, right? You know, in the fucking red light district over at the Valen, they got all them waffle shops, mate.
Lots of waffle places, yeah.
The Strudel waffle, they're nothing better. You're fucking stoned as fuck. You can get yourself a hot Belgian waffle covered in like Nutella, strawberry cream on it. Yeah, mate. Massive. Just eating that. I'm right. That's giving me enough energy to go and see a prostitute. It's perfect. That's where I'm at.
But yeah, for a kebab shop, I think it's actually pretty good in Netherlands. The key thing is you just got to find the right place. Like if you find a really good place that does like a mega croquette, it'll be fucking back. It's like the perfect food to eat if you're high, basically. Just all carbs, by the way. Goes out saying.
Yeah, it's happening. I hope that answers your question. Rez Chi, where's the best burger joint you've ever eaten at? Ever?
The problem with that is I think the real answer is probably boring. Like like the problem is I can't remember necessarily the exact place, but it's got to be one of the times I've been to America. It is the thing they do fucking the best, isn't it? They're not. But this way, you can't really beat if you're in like Dallas or fucking Texas or something, and you go to a massive sports bar that has the fucking NFL game on with like 50 screens. There's beige pictures coming. You're getting massive burgers with like just stack and bacon in.
$4 for that burger.
It's the best, isn't it? Like they have nailed that part. You can't really fuck with the Americans for that.
I mean, for me, the best burger I remember when I first went to America as a kid, and we pulled into a fucking understand. I'm a council rat who's had shit burgers all his life, like Findus, frozen, tiny, pathetic burgers. Like half of it's sawdust, the other half's cardboard, and they've just put some beef paste on the top and make you think you're eating something healthy. Like kills you many years later, you know. And when I went to America for the first time, we pulled into a steak and shake. You ever heard of that? And like literally,
one of the best ones,
they grind up steak into patties.
The meat quality's way better quality.
Mate,
yeah, exactly.
Fucking hell, and a massive. So imagine having that as a kid. I was like, what the fuck is this? Blew my fucking mind. So like, That was the start of the love affair with America. You know, it was your burgers, it weren't your politics.
This way, the one thing I never understood when I went to America is why are people actually going to McDonald's while they're here? Like, dude, you've got everything that's better than McDonald's here. Like, I get it in other countries. Like, in the UK, there's not that many good burgers, mate. There's, you know, they're pretty average. I mean, to be fair, I know Uber Eats will probably get a gourmet one now or something. But that's the thing I never got is why if you're in America, you go to McDonald's. Are you out of your mind?
I know. And by the way, Five Guys is overrated. Sorry, homies.
I'm a big fan of Five Guys, actually. I think it's pretty good.
I'm saying, I think it's overrated. I think, put it this way, all the best meals I've ever had, like as in burgers, tacos, burritos, whatever, you don't even find them in your chain restaurants. Even the ones I'm gonna you find them at 2 a.m. in a fucking truck stop.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, in Nevada, mate, I used to go down that main road, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes out of the strip where it's just fucking desert, right? You'd find a truck stop down there and they just bring you some, like, just grateful for the business, like unlimited fucking refills of coffee. Here's a breakfast burrito that's the size of an elephant's knob. And it's $5 and it's fucking.
Oh, I'll tell you what, mate. There's one thing if no one's ever done this before, you got to do is if you're ever in LA, just find where all these like super famous food trucks park around the city, right? Because mate, some of the food in those is unbelievable. Like it's really gourmet food. Because the whole thing is they basically take them and park outside like a fucking massive business where all the people come out for lunch or whatever. Some of those are really good.
Yeah. So that answers your question. Elon, what is the next dish Richard and Sam would like Kate to cook? So you're absolved from this one.
What sort of shit does she do, by the way? Is it just all garbage? Or is it actually real?
No, she's to give you an idea, Duncan, she did a video for stuffed mushrooms where she didn't even stuff the mushrooms. She just put bacon and garlic on top of the mushrooms. And let me tell you, that is her evolving as a chef. If you go back, she boils mince. The one we showed on my stream the other day.
So is this supposed to be like some Carl Pilkington shit where she's actually the bottom of the jaw and doesn't fully understand it?
Well, I think like 50% of her audience understand that she is a tasteless hag that shouldn't be anywhere near kitchen equipment and will actually be poisoning people with the food she's cooking. But for the other 50%, unironically go, that looks delicious, Kate.
Oh, my God. Get me out.
Basically, you know Gammons, Brexit's banter and that, right? The full, she is the queen of the gammons.
She's taken over from Diana. There we go.
Yeah. You had Princess Diana, the Queen of Hearts. God bless her, we miss her. Who can we replace her with? What about some fat mess on a council estate that can't eat? She doesn't even understand what spaghetti is. Mate, the video we watched on my stream, she fucking took spaghetti, right, and just cooked it in a pan. She didn't, like, as in with no water. She didn't boil it or nothing. She put it in the oven, cooked it, and then brought her fat son, Big Lee, he's called. He came out and was eating it and went, it's a bit crunchy, this.
The answer's obvious, isn't it? The next dish we want her to prepare is that fucking blowfish that they have in Japan.
Come try this, Lee.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know. Sam, have you got a favourite, like? Other than Fugu?
I'm trying to think of what's a British classic that she definitely fuck up, like.
Toad in the hole or something.
Yeah, like her trying to make a Yorkshire, I imagine would just be wrecked.
Wouldn't even rise, nothing.
Yeah, just a flat, burnt piece of dough.
I'd just like to see her fucking trip up and, like, I don't know, I'd like to see her have a crack at Indian food. I bet that's going to be mental. I bet that would be so bad, like. You know what I mean? Because, like, she has no idea of spice balance or nothing. Like, that's way evolved. That's beyond, like, flavour profiles. Too much for Kay. If she hasn't boiled your fucking mince and then just covered it in margarine, you know, she's done good. So, whatever. Anyway, Chris with a K. Each of you have unlimited power to change one aspect of the world with one condition. It can only be used to directly improve the life of one of your mates from the talent pool.
Ooh, okay.
What do you use the unlimited power to change?
This would be easy. This one's easy.
What's that then?
Well, being as like obviously the tricky part is that you have to like improve the life of the other person. So whatever you do, it has to improve their life, right? So it's actually hard, to be fair, to pick things that you could change that would definitely improve. So all I would do is this. I would just make it so that I don't know how I would do this game. I have unlimited power. I would just make it so that basically you never ever read negative tweets because I want to see what Richard Lewis is like. Just everything else the same, but just in a world without constant tweets. I would like to see that.
So hang on. I'm trying to process this. Are you saying that like my Twitter feed's a mess?
I'm saying I think your life would inarguably improve if you didn't read stupid comments from people on Twitter.
Do you? No, but do you read stupid comments on Twitter?
I don't think I read as much as you do, but that's one of the reasons I don't read them very much.
I will say this. I do read every comment on every platform.
Definitely don't do that.
100% completion rate with Richard. Like,
no, but that's the reason why I'm bringing this up as a topic, because that's why I don't do it personally. Because I think it helped me a lot when I sort of tried to dial back as much as I can.
Do you feel like you've dialed back?
Loads, mate. I read barely any fucking replies now.
No, but I also mean in terms of like the need to like, because before, right, like you're in that weird spot where your brand is being unfiltered, but in our current like sort of
you can't be unfiltered, yeah.
In our current climate, you can't be unfiltered. So to not do it is almost like watering down your brand that in a way that could actually isolate you from your core audience.
Couldn't do, yeah, sure.
But equally as well, I also know that like, and I feel this the same way. The idea of putting, I don't care if an outside entity tries to censor me. But if I feel I have to censor myself, I feel defeated and dejected in a way that's way more. I like the combative element. You tell me I can't say this. Yeah, I can. Fuck you. I like that. But if I feel like I can't do it, myself, then I feel like I've truly lost something. I think you feel the same way.
Oh, no, I get that. Let's put it this way. I've alluded to this on a past episode, but put it this way. When that whole scenario happened between me and Blast, obviously, I could have just agreed with them. Yeah, okay, I won't tweet about Australis. But my point, and by the way, I didn't even have plans to tweet about Australis. But I just thought there's one thing I'm definitely not doing is just having a company tell me I can't tweet about one topic under any circumstance.
Yeah,
I'm not doing that, am I?
Yeah, no, you can't agree to that because it opens the gates to.
Yeah, exactly. I just thought, where's this going to be in 6 months?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, listen. So when I used to
talk, I already was with the whole Neon thing. I was fucking bag on that one, wasn't I? I got out at the right time.
Yeah, defo. And when I used to talk to John about it. On the few occasions we sort of broached this subject, Total Biscuit for those in the chat, he had a massive problem with it. He used to tell me it was like this insane compulsion he had, where he knew whatever what he knew that he would delve into all the comments and read them, and he knew it would only cause him pain. He knew it would upset him. But he couldn't not do it because he had to see. And he went and he had like his IP blocked off Reddit. He got his wife to kind of set up this like mad convoluted scheme where he would literally have to bypass all these protections and protocols to go read these comments, and he'd still do it to himself. I remember before he passed away, he used to say it actually killed him. And he said, and he was actually convinced, I think on some level, it contributed to his illness. But he used to say, he said, the human mind is not designed.
Oh, definitely not.
To deal with hundreds of thousands. Remember, he was a guy with a following of millions. Me and you, we got like 100,000, 200,000 on Twitter. It's fucking nothing, right? He was a guy with a following of millions. And he just said the human mind is not designed to cope with it. And it is absolutely fucked me up and contributed to my lack of quality of life. But equally as well, even though I never said it to him while he was alive, I always felt on some level, you are letting him win a bit there though. Because I'm so combative. I'm so you're right, 100%. If I didn't see any of that, I probably would have a much better quality of life and I wouldn't get embroiled in stupid arguments. All of the edging I'm doing with my career is based on replying to morons who've got no stake in the game and nothing to lose. But I also feel if I ever self-filter and don't reply to them, I am the loser. So I won't do it. It's like, again, like I always told you, like my dad said, don't let the bastards grind you down. I just won't admit defeat, even if it means utter destruction. I will. So you're right, though. It's a nice thought. Now I feel compelled to give you one. Because I was going to just give Moses hair. Because I know how much it upsets him that he's actually got male pattern baldness. I'm just going to give him the genetic cure for that. But now I need to give you something. What would be good for you?
It's also so cruel if you think about it, that Moses, everyone's seen the pictures, we all posted them, was a legitimately really good-looking guy when he was like 22 or something, you know. But of course,
he's still a good-looking guy.
He's still pretty good for it. No, but this is the problem. The period in which he has been the most famous is when he's just has full pattern baldness. Like,
yeah,
it's cruel, isn't it, life?
No, like life can be cruel. Life can be cruel. So there's that for sure. No, but I'll try. What? You know what, mate? I just wish, and this is like bizarrely emotional thing to say, but I just wish people could get, like, I would give you the gift of like everyone else just giving you the 5 minutes of empathy that if anyone actually did it, they would realize you're not all that bad. Like, because I think you've overcome like tremendous fucking hurdles. Like, I know the world you're from. I also know as well that when you tweeted out about the Asperger's thing, like the unbelievable, unfathomable cruelty I've seen people throw at you as a result of that, like, very rare moment of vulnerability. And they also as well, the fact that you've conceded that publicly, and it's given you nothing except the insults and the pain. You know, like, no one's ever said for 5 minutes, like, oh, you know, maybe Duncan thinks differently about this issue and he's worded that a bit, you know, a bit tersely because of this. Never, they've never given you that. You've never been given a second's quarter, and it boils my piss because I know you would never think to frame yourself as a victim. Wouldn't use it as a shield. Would never even invoke it, and in fact have gone to great pains to almost remove it from the. I don't think you have to. I think it's a part of you that makes you special and brilliant. And I wish people would just for 5 minutes sort of intuitively apply that to your personality. I see people who make all these excuses, none of which are actually excuses. It's just bullshit, and they get away with outrageous stuff as a result of it.
Basically, unfortunately, here's how I would describe it. You know, in the same way as we've got this stupid economy where everyone has to mega lie about their resume when they go to a job because everyone else lies. In the same way as in the UFC, everyone who's 155 pounds probably should fight at 170, but they all weight cut, because if we don't all weight cut, the guy that weight cuts gets the advantage. Problem is, people are too used to what you're saying. Everyone going out of their way to cram every excuse down your throat, that if you don't say it, they just assume it just must not exist.
Yeah. It's just sad, mate, because I think, like, when you know, like, listen, you've definitely said some stuff that, like, I don't agree with. The idea that agreement, by the way, is some sort of like precursor to friendship is like, what a wretched time to be alive in human
history. That's the psyop right there, isn't it? That they actually succeeded in making normal people think, oh, this person who I'm friends with and known for years and friends with about 50 different levels. Oh, they said something I don't agree with. Yeah, I cast them out like Peter denying Jesus. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
What sort of world have we made?
Yeah, we've made a world where, like, at some point in your life, if you have any online presence in Europe or America, you will have to renounce a friend based on something that ultimately might be incredibly trivial in the in the grand scheme of things. And, you know, I've seen some of the people that have come for you and some of the things they've said about, you know, calling you racist and totalitarian instincts and all, and it's just like, none of it's true. But, you know, you've had some unfortunate faux pas because social media is, first of all, incredibly new to people like me and Duncan. You know, we're not from that world. We blew up, by the way, and got followers. Like, we've never had that before. You know, we're fucking council estate people. And then on top of that, there's also this clamor where people want you to be unfiltered until you say the thing that they don't like. They want you to spit it out. And, like, and unfortunately, that's a very seductive trap. When you go 9 times out of 10, you say something off the cuff that's brilliant and everyone loves it and everyone applauds you and your followers go up and all this. And then on the 10th attempt, you've inflamed somebody's passions who got a bigger following than you, and suddenly you're not allowed to have a job. So yeah, that's what I'd do, mate. I think I just wish people could spare you a little bit of empathy, because it's definitely worth it. You know, I'll say this on the record: Duncan's a good guy, doesn't hate anybody, doesn't want to hurt anybody. You know, well, unless, you know, you're fucking with his Skrilla, but That's fair. Never fuck with a man's meal. Right. Last question. Echo. What is the largest animal? Oh, yeah, and TSM. You're right, chat. Yeah, my bad. What is the largest animal Sam could 1v1 armed only with a kitchen knife? Here you go, Sam.
I think he could take a lot. He could
like
could
a chef
take a lot.
knife. Like a big knife, like a sharp big knife, not like a fucking
Yeah,
steak
go
knife.
on then.
Like a chopper, sharp knife.
Yeah, chopper. A proper kitchen knife.
Oof. And at least a deer, but I'm thinking.
Right, here's the problem. Let's be real. First of all, to make it interesting, it has to be something vaguely violent. Like when it says largest animal,
yeah, because a
cow.
cow.
He would kill like a blue whale, wouldn't it? It can't swim and he'd just be stuck. So it has to be something that's dangerous, yeah. So let me think. How big are we going for this? It's got to be something half decent, I reckon.
I mean,
I think he could kill a wild boar. I think he could get a wild boar.
They're dangerous. They can like disembowel you. They can fuck you up.
It's got to be dangerous.
Yeah. I'd say I could do it. Maybe. I'd say
a man
6 out of 10 times. 6 out of 10 times, I reckon I win against a wild boar. If I'm amongst the trees, like I can dip and dive a bit, get a knife in. I got my money on me against a wild boar. I reckon I can go bigger than a wild boar though. A deer.
How much bigger are we going though? Deer.
Yeah.
Why would a deer attack you though? Deer's
well, a moose would fuck you up.
They can fuck you up with the hot antlers and all that shit.
I don't know though. They're pretty big. I know.
Yeah,
that's a lot of slashes, like for a moose.
I don't think you're beating a moose. You'd have to get it good.
Yeah, I reckon 4 out of 10 times I might be able to beat a moose. I don't know. They are big, but they got those hot. I'm imagining like forests, trees around, so I can hide behind the trees, charging me. Hey, dragging out the village.
Yeah. What about a hippo?
A hippo? No.
Supposedly, that's super dangerous.
They're one of the most violent, dangerous animals.
Which I would never guess, but
I couldn't get through an hippo, mate. I mean, a moose is pushing it. I'd probably getting killed by a moose. Like, I'd have to get a lucky antler entanglement in the trees, like get a few free stabs off.
I think you should just stick with a wild boar, mate. I think outside of that, I think
cow easy
now. Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like,
bull. Nah, fuck a bull.
You can sneak up on a cow in the middle of the night and tip it on its side. Like
I was thinking bull, but no way, mate. I've watched those videos of the fucking people getting their throat horned up, mate.
Big cats are too quick.
No way, yeah. A wolf would rip my face off too fast.
Yeah, I think you're gonna have to stick with a boar, mate. I'm sad to say.
Nah,
you could
mate,
do a crocodile.
Yeah.
Are they bigger than boars?
Yeah, way bigger. I could do a crocodile.
Yeah, but that's a cheat in a way. They're so daft. You can just come behind them.
Just in the top of the head.
Yeah, like just shield their eyes.
I've seen it on a video of him plunging in the top of the head.
Yeah, wasn't it on that? What's it? Survivor on the Island or whatever.
It's like it's right at the back of the head.
Killed a freshwater alligator. He did. Yeah, pussy.
Right. Everyone used to think they were big shit until my boy Steve got taken by that fucking manta.
I know, mate.
We all had to think twice.
Rest in peace.
Fucking monster.
I actually miss him, mate. I know. Sad.
Steve.
His kids are all grown up now, doing TV. Good for them.
Any of them do any of the family business?
Yeah, they're all in it, mate.
Oh, they all do.
They all do. Yeah,
his daughter, his son. Yeah, straight living the dream. But so you'll see him on TV soon. Right. That's that. We're wrapping up the show. Let's get the fuck out of here. So, thank you to everyone that tuned in today. I know, by the way, to all the Americans that have been watching, I know that you're going to get embroiled and wrapped up in this mad, like, oh no, what's happened today? It's the worst thing. They are solid a coup and everything.
We'll be fine next week, don't worry.
Okay. Trust me, they'll be talking about something else inside of 2
days.
Of
course. Come on.
Right? Your country's been a mess for a long, long time. It ain't even just the last 5 years. It's the 2 decades. You've been slowly eroding and chipping away at the democracy you claim to cherish, right? With partisan politics and bullshit and lies for 2 decades minimum, by the way. So just fucking relax. Take a deep breath. Don't get fucking sucked into the vortex of shit. It's poisonous. It's not good for you. And that's what they want. That's why there's mental cunts walking into the Capitol building in the first place. Everyone keeps gassing up their team and telling them they're definitely right, no matter what atrocities they commit. And guess what happens? They go out and they do the bad things. The only way to break that cycle is to disengage from the messaging. That's the cure. So, deep breath. It's going to be okay. America will endure. The Constitution will endure. The Electoral College will endure. If you think this is the biggest test that's ever suffered, you've never opened a history book. It's going to be okay. That in mind, Shout out to the sponsors, .com. Much love to them. Go to .com/RLS, create an account to show your appreciation. Also, as well, check out NordVPN. I'm telling you guys, I'm not just saying this all out. Get yourself a VPN. Just fucking do it. All sorts of mad shit's going on with your Pornhub stuff, and in Britain, your ISPs are spying on you and seeing what you jerk off to. You'll end up fucking running for office one day, and that's going to get leaked. It's already happened, by the way. So just, get a VPN. That's a smart thing. Go to nordvpn.com/RLS, 68% off. And of course, shout out to all the patrons that brought the show back from the dead. $100 patrons, Jerky's Minion, Blunt Smoking Sex Enthusiast, Carve, Flacksmith, Hanmaru Alice, J-Dubs, Marcus Kyunpa, Tobias Bernasconi, Zarathenia, and our $50 patrons, Chingu, Benakagi, Cathal, Echo, Gaming Paul DK, Goody Woody, Chris with a K, Miss Alcoholic, Quasar Fox, Reykjavik on Steam, Rez Chi, Sard Sawar, Smart as Superman, Lonnie, Watch Doge, Elon, BP420, First Sock, Gerhan Kaya, and Sulf. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. Thanks to all the people who subbed, all of that stuff. We'll see you on the next episode of By the Numbers, probably next week. And until then, take care of yourselves.